Chapter 1963, Absorbing the Poison. Chapter 1963, Absorbing the Poison. Eventually, the Azure Dragon clan calmed down. We'll deal with the first elder and the third elder later. For now, since you purified the poison, does that mean our problem has been fixed? Jiao Zhenhai asked Yuan. He shook his head. Hard to say. Since the Azure Dragon clan has been exposed to the poison for thousands of years, it might have a permanent effect on your bloodline. However, it's also possible for your bloodline to improve in future generations. Can't you just purify the poison in our body? The Shenbing asked. Like I said, the poison is already deeply rooted in your body. It'd be like trying to remove salt that has already been dissolved in water. It's not impossible, but it's going to be very difficult and time-consuming. How long would it take for you to cleanse one person? Jiao Zhenhai asked. I won't know until I try it, Yuan said. Can you try it? Only the younger generation really needs to be healed since they're going to be the ones carrying on our bloodline and legacy. I'll give it a try, but if it takes too long or is too risky, I won't be able to help you. Jiao Zhenhai nodded and turned to look at Shenbing. Shenbing, are you willing to be first? He nodded and said, of course. Anything for the family. Now lend us a quiet place with little to no disturbance, said Yuan. Jiao Zhenhai brought them to his own room and said, I'll forbid anyone from approaching this place so you can do the treatment in complete silence. Yuan looked at Shenbing and asked, Are you ready? Whenever you are. They sat down with Yuan sitting behind Shenbing. I'm going to examine your body first. Do not resist my spiritual energy. Yuan placed his palms on Xuanbing's back and began spreading his spiritual energy around to examine the interior of Xuanbing's body. The poison isn't affecting your physical strength, and your internal organs remain unharmed, Yuan said as he carefully examined Shenbing. As for the poison itself, it's deeply embedded within your body from your blood to your cells, to the point that it's almost undetectable. I'm going to begin the purifying process now. Let me know if it hurts. Without hesitation, Yuan began the process of removing the poison from Xuanbing's body. Unlike traditional purification techniques, his method was far more direct. He wasn't neutralizing the poison but absorbing it into himself. Xuanbing's body began to tremble uncontrollably, his muscles tensing as the poison was drawn out. Yet not a single sound escaped his lips. He clenched his jaw and bore it in silence, choosing to endure rather than show weakness. Seeing this, Yuan decided to continue without saying a word. Exactly 1 week later, Yuan paused the process and examined Xuanbing's condition, comparing his current condition to what it had been when they first began to see how long it'd take to fully heal him. At this rate, it will take around 4 months to remove all of the poison in your body, and the pain will only get worse, Yuan said to Shenbing. At 4 months? Shenbing swallowed nervously. It's okay. I can endure it. No, I will endure it. Alright, let me speak with your father before we continue. Sometime later, Jiao Zhenhai appeared before them. I can heal him in 4 months. Yuan went straight to the point. That's great. Then, however, I will be done once I heal him. Yuan suddenly interrupted. I have already solved the source of your problem, so I am technically already done. Once I heal him, I'll need the key. If you cannot accept this, then things might get complicated. The excitement on Jiao Zhenhai's face immediately disappeared when he remembered that Yuan wasn't helping them for free. Regardless of their situation, none of it was Yuan's problem. Moreover, it was not as if the Azure Dragon clan's lives were in danger. Is there no room for negotiation? I have 5 children which would only take a little under 2 years to cure. In Jiao Zhenhai's eyes, 2 years was nothing. 2 years may be nothing in your eyes, but don't forget that I am a human. I also have many things to do. 2 years is a long time for me. However, if you make it worthwhile, I guess I can stay here for 2 years. To the Treasury. They'll let you take 1 treasure from our Azure Dragon clan's treasury for every child of mine you cure after Shenbing, Jiao Zhenhai said. Yuan narrowed his eyes, but he didn't immediately respond. Let me think about it. We can continue this conversation once I heal your son, since we still don't know if he can endure it until I completely remove the poison from his body. It's a painful process after all. Okay. Jiao Zhenhai nodded, hope flickering within his gaze. After speaking with Jiao Zhenhai, Yuan spoke with the Dragon Emperor. They'll be here for at least another 4 months to heal Shenbing. After that, I may or may not heal the others, which could take another 2 years. I'm not going to ask you to stay here with me so you can return to the Dragon Spiral Mountain. Are you sure you want me to leave? What if? It's fine. I doubt the Azure Dragon clan would do anything to me at this point. Even if they want to do something, Dragon Goddess Yeo is at my side. Moreover, my friend Shimeli should know about my situation. I don't want her to worry. I understand. But instead of leaving immediately, he'll leave in 4 months just in case. Sometime later, Yuan resumed the process of cleansing the poison from Xuanbing's body. Time passed swiftly, and in the blink of an eye, 4 months had gone by. I've successfully removed 99% of the poison from your body. While a trace amount remains, it's insignificant, far too weak to have any effect on you. Yuan said to Xianbing, who was drenched in sweat. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Chapter 1964, Azure Dragon Clan's Treasury? Chapter 1964, Azure Dragon Clan's Treasury, thank you. Xianbing stood up once he regained enough energy and bowed to Yuan. No problem. They contacted Jiao Zhenhai and the others shortly after. So, how are the results? Jiao Zhenhai asked. I have purified 99% of the poison in his blood. As for the remaining percent, it's too little to have any effect on him, so he's essentially fully healed, Yuan explained. Thank you. Jiao Zhenhai said with a slightly lowered head. Now about the others? Yuan then said, let me rest for a few days, then I want to take a look at your treasury. If the contents interest me, I'll accept your offer. In that case, contact me whenever you are ready. I have already prepared a room for you. Yuan was led to his room shortly after. I'll head back to the Dragon Spiral Mountain now, said the Dragon Emperor in front of his room. Yuan nodded. I'll return as soon as I am done here. Thanks for coming here with me. The Dragon Emperor left Yuan alone shortly after, but he didn't leave the Azure Dragon clan yet. Jiao Zhenhai, I will be returning to the Dragon Spiral Mountain now. Already? Does that mean the envoy won't? That's not it. I will be returning alone. Senior envoy will remain here. In fact, I believe that the senior envoy has already decided to help your family, hence why he's sending me away. Is that so? Jiao Zhenhai sighed in relief. The senior envoy's safety is now your Azure Dragon clan's responsibility. If anything happens to senior envoy while I am gone, you'll have to answer the entire Dragon Spiral Mountain. Jiao Zhenhai sneered. Relax, Dragon Emperor. He's our Azure Dragon clan's savior. Well, return him to the Dragon Spiral Mountain safely once he's done here. The Dragon Emperor nodded and left without saying another word. A few days later, Yuan emerged from his room and was personally escorted by Jiao Zhenhai to the Azure Dragon clan's treasury. Unlike most treasuries confined to physical space, this one was hidden within a separate dimension, Jiao Zhenhai's personal world. Upon entering, Yuan found himself standing before a massive, square-shaped structure that resembled an ancient museum, grand and imposing. The entrance was sealed behind a powerful level 9 formation, a barrier that only Jiao Zhenhai could unlock. Inside, the building opened into a single vast chamber, and Yuan was greeted by an overwhelming sight. Rows upon rows of treasures, each one neatly displayed in elegant cases and along finely carved wall shelves. The sheer number of treasures stored within the chamber caused the air itself to pulse with concentrated spiritual energy. The pressure was immense, so dense and overwhelming that a cultivator at the Spirit Enlightenment realm would be crushed the moment they stepped inside. Take your time looking around, and if you see anything that piques your interest, don't hesitate to speak up, said Jiao Zhenhai as he gestured for Yuan to enter. Yuan wasted no time and immediately began looking at the treasures. The vast majority of the treasures within the treasury were weapons, armor, and artifacts. Most were of mythic grade or higher. The shelves dedicated to pills held a dazzling array of Tier 8 elixirs, and among them, a handful of exceedingly rare Tier 9 pills. Only the best and most powerful treasures make it to our treasury, said Jiao Zhenhai in a prideful tone. I can see that, Yuan said with a smile. The more Yuan explored the treasury, the more he was tempted to accept Jiao Zhenhai's offer. 2 years. While it's not a lot of time for most people, it's a lot to me. With his talents, Yuan could easily achieve what most people take centuries to achieve in 2 years, not to mention his real body was still stuck on Earth. After several hours of meticulously examining each treasure, Yuan finally reached the far end of the room. There, set apart from all the others, was a single display, elevated slightly and encased in its own reinforced barrier. Inside sat a breathtaking blue crystal, glowing faintly with a serene yet powerful light. Despite its relatively small size, no bigger than a drop of water, its luster shimmered like moonlight on still water, and its aura was unlike anything else in the room. What is this treasure? Yuan asked, his gaze lingering on the luminous blue crystal. Jiao Zhenhai's expression stiffened slightly before he offered a nervous smile and said, "That is our family heirloom, the Tear of the Azure Heavens." Tear of the Azure Heavens? Never heard of it. So this is the treasure that the person who poisoned your clan wanted. What does it do? Jiao Zhenhai shook his head and said, "I'm being completely honest when I say this, but I have no clue what it does." So you have an unknown crystal as your family heirloom? Yuan raised his eyebrows in puzzlement. This treasure has been with our family since ancient times. It is said that it used to belong to our ancestor. Yuan stared at the crystal in silence. Its unique aura wasn't the only reason he took an interest in it. The 9 dragon symbols have been acting up since he entered the treasury, and it was currently having the strongest reaction. Is there any chance you'd be willing to give me this treasure for the treatment? I'm willing to treat all of your children for this one treasure, Yuan said. I'm sorry, but that's impossible. Yuan pondered for a moment before speaking. What if I give you a few drops of Immortal Monarch's blood? What? The Immortal Monarch's blood. Jiao Zhenhai couldn't believe his ears and almost fell down from shock. Among the beast race there existed a widely famous legend, one that had endured for generations. It was said that the blood of the Immortal Monarch possessed a miraculous property, the ability to elevate the bloodline of any who absorbed it. For beasts of royal lineage, who valued the purity of their bloodline more than life itself, such a thing was beyond priceless. Jiao Zhenhai swallowed nervously as he seriously contemplated Yuan's offer. Chapter 1965, Tear of the Azure Heavens? Chapter 1965, Tear of the Azure Heavens. After Yuan offered the Immortal Monarch's blood for the Tear of the Azure Heavens, Jiao Zhenhai began to seriously contemplate his offer. The Immortal Monarch's blood would not only help the Azure Dragon clan recover their weakened bloodline but might even strengthen it past their original purity. How many drops of the Immortal Monarch's blood do you possess? Jiao Zhenhai asked in a hesitant tone. Yuan smiled and said, "Enough for you and all of your children." That much? Jiao Zhenhai almost couldn't believe his ears. However, Jiao Zhenhai didn't immediately agree and pondered. The Tears of Azure Heavens has been with our family since ancient times, but if I'm being honest, we have no use for it. Hell, we don't even know what it does. However, if we have the Immortal Monarch's blood, it would solve our predicament and might even strengthen our bloodline. But for him to offer something as valuable as the Immortal Monarch's blood, the Tears of Azure Heavens must be as valuable, if not even more valuable, than the Immortal Monarch's blood. Damn it. Do I take his offer or not? Eventually, Jiao Zhenhai made up his mind and spoke. However, Jiao Zhenhai's voice abruptly stopped, and his eyes widened with shock and disbelief when Yuan suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. Both Jiao Zhenhai and Yuan simultaneously looked down, only to see a gleaming blue trident jutting clean through Yuan's chest, right where his heart was located. The next moment, Yuan collapsed to the ground. What? Jiao Zhenhai exclaimed in bewilderment, mostly because he recognized the trident. He subconsciously turned to look at the entrance and saw a lone figure standing there. Second Elder? How did you get in here? No, more important, what do you think you're doing? What does it look like I am doing? The Second Elder calmly responded. Don't tell me, you've betrayed the Azure Dragon clan too. Jiao Zhenhai's voice trembled with disbelief as shock flooded his face. After the First Elder and the Third Elder's sudden betrayal, they had tirelessly interrogated the Second Elder for the past 4 months to ensure that he wasn't working with them, since the 3 of them were like peas in a pod. And after many hours of questioning, the Second Elder had been cleared of any suspicion. But alas, why did the 3 of you betray the Azure Dragon clan? Jiao Zhenhai roared as his cultivation erupted furiously. The Second Elder shrugged and said, "It's quite simple. The Azure Dragon clan is no longer worth our protection and loyalty. There's no way you'd be stupid enough to betray us over such a reason." The Second Elder smiled and said, "You're right. We found a place that's worth our loyalty." "Oh, who are you working for?" Jiao Zhenhai roared as he pounced at the Second Elder. "Does it even matter? The Azure Dragon clan will soon cease to exist, anyway." The Second Elder calmly raised his hand and deflected Jiao Zhenhai's furious strike. The clash sent shockwaves rippling through the treasury, but with both of them being at the 4th level of the God Ascension realm, they stood locked in place, equally matched. "They'll force everything out of you even if it's the last thing I do," Jiao Zhenhai roared. "I'd like to see you try." Jiao Zhenhai and the Second Elder clashed fiercely, their battle shaking the very foundation of the dimension. Blades of energy tore through the air, waves of celestial chi collided, and spatial distortions cracked around them like glass. Yet, despite the overwhelming power of their techniques, not a single treasure in the room was disturbed. Every weapon, pill, and artifact remained untouched. After nearly 1,000 intense exchanges, the tide of battle began to shift, and the Second Elder's cultivation suddenly increased to the 5th level. The Second Elder, though evenly matched at first, immediately started to gain the upper hand. Ah, how do you like this? I, who have always been slightly behind you, am now stronger. This is the result of betraying the Azure Dragon clan. You despicable bastard. Eventually, the Second Elder overpowered Zhao Zhenhai and sent him flying across the Treasury. Once I kill you, acquire the tier of the Azure Heavens and accomplish our goal, we'll receive even more benefit from the Mystic Sea Dragon clan. Zhao Zhenhai trembled after hearing the name Mystic Sea Dragon clan. You were colluding with the Mystic Sea Dragon clan this entire time. You low-life bastards. Zhao Zhenhai roared, his voice thunderous with fury. The Second Elder covered his mouth with a hand and spoke in a teasing tone. Oops. I wasn't supposed to reveal that. Well, it doesn't really matter since you're going to die so. In the midst of his sentence, the Second Elder suddenly stiffened, a sharp jolt of pain lancing through his back, like a blade piercing straight through him. His eyes widened in disbelief as he slowly turned around, only to see Yuan standing mere inches behind him, a dagger firmly gripped in his hand. You. How are you still alive? The Second Elder gasped, staggering slightly as a burning pain rippled throughout his body. However, what stunned him even more than the fact that Yuan was still alive after taking a spear through the heart was how he had managed to slip behind him completely unnoticed. Just like the First Elder, you seem to like attacking people from the back, so I'm letting you experience it for yourself. How is it? Do you enjoy it? Snapping out of his daze, the Second Elder roared loudly and lashed out with a wild, powerful swing of his arm. Blat. Yuan's head was torn clean from his shoulders before it hurtled across the room, where it struck the wall with a sickening splatter of blood. That son of a bitch. I don't know how he survived being struck in the heart, but he's definitely dead now. No mortal can survive without their head. However, as the Second Elder turned away from the blood-smeared wall and back toward Yuan, his eyes widened in shock and his complexion paled instantly, almost as if he'd seen a ghost. Sup, Yuan said with a smile on his face. Chapter 1966, A Glimpse of Zishen's Prowess? Chapter 1966, A glimpse of Zishen's prowess. As if struck by a sudden nightmare, the Second Elder recoiled in horror. With a sharp gasp, he leapt backward instinctively. What the hell are you? The Second Elder exclaimed, his voice riddled with fear. How are you still alive? Before Yuan could even respond, the Second Elder spoke again. It can't be. That regenerative ability. You're a demon. Ah. Yuan laughed at the Second Elder's assumptions. Are those your last words? The Second Elder clenched his fists and roared, so what if you're a demon? You're still a mere divine emperor. I can crush you with a finger. The Second Elder raised a trembling finger at Yuan, gathering celestial chi with murderous intent blazing in his eyes. But the moment the celestial chi began to surge through him, a searing pain erupted from deep within his body, far more intense than before. His expression twisted in agony as the burning sensation multiplied, coursing through his veins like wildfire, threatening to tear him apart from the inside. This is poison. You poison me? The Second Elder immediately retrieved a handful of pills and swallowed them simultaneously after realizing Yuan had poisoned him. Those pills won't save you, Yuan said coldly. Heaven's Bane is one of the most lethal poisons in the universe. Unless you have specifically prepared for it, you won't get rid of it. Moreover, Yuan had struck the Second Elder with Baneful Abyss, his sole weapon that not only amplified the potency of Heaven's Bane but also accelerated its effects to a terrifying degree. Despite having a much higher cultivation than the First Elder, it took less time for the Second Elder to succumb to the poison. The Second Elder fell to his knees a moment later. However, despite his seemingly hopeless situation, he smiled and said, So you managed to kill my physical body, but as long as my soul is intact, I am not dead. I know, Yuan said. I also know that I don't have the power to destroy your soul. However, I know someone who can. Ah. The Second Elder laughed even as pain twisted his features. If you're talking about the clan leader, not even he could destroy my soul. Don't underestimate a God Ascension realm cultivator. Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly, his tone calm and dismissive. God Ascension? He sneered. I've killed more of them than I can count. Yuan immediately put away Baneful Abyss and retrieved number 1 under heaven. Zixian, I'll leave him to you. What happened to using my energy on something worth it? He's hardly worth my energy, Zixian said. I know, but unfortunately we cannot let him live. Suddenly number 1 under heaven began to tremble, its entire form radiating an intense golden light. The brilliance grew blinding until the light itself began to shift, condensing, reshaping. Moments later, standing where the weapon once hovered was the beautiful figure of an adult woman. Her presence was regal and imposing, her voluptuous form wrapped in flowing black and golden robes that shimmered like starlight. His sword transformed into a human? Jiao Zhenhai watched the scene before him with a dumbfounded expression. Zixian examined her body for a moment before turning to look at Yuan with a dissatisfied face and said, I am able to take this form since you've improved your cultivation to Divine Emperor, but it's not good enough. I can barely last a few minutes right now, and that won't be anywhere near enough to satisfy me. I will need to be able to remain in this form for at least a month to have a proper session with you. A whole month? Please spare me. Yuan said with a stiff smile. I refuse. This is non-negotiable, especially since you left me in that depressing place for so long. The second elder stood frozen, his eyes locked on Zixian as she casually chatted with Yuan, but not out of infatuation. It wasn't her devastating beauty that left him dazed, but the overwhelming, unfathomable aura radiating from her presence. Anyway, let me take care of this trash first. Zixian slowly turned her gaze toward the second elder. The moment her eyes met his body began to tremble uncontrollably. The sheer weight of her presence, conveyed through nothing more than a casual glance, was enough to crush his will. In that single moment, all hope drained from the second elder's eyes. He knew he wasn't facing a cultivator but something far beyond his comprehension. How dare a lowly rat lay its filthy paws on my beloved? Zixian's voice rang out. She took a single step toward the second elder, graceful yet absolute. The moment her foot touched the ground, a ripple of overwhelming force erupted outward, infused with supreme sword qi. The entire dimension quaked in silent awe, as if bowing to the sheer majesty of Zixian's presence. All around them, the display cases that had remained undamaged even through the cataclysmic battle between Jiao Zhenhai and the second elder began to crack. As Zixian took her second step, every display case within the treasury dissolved into countless fragments impossible to see with the naked eye. The second elder's body met the same fate. One moment he was there and he was gone the next. No blood, no remains. Not even a speck of dust lingered. He had been erased, utterly and completely. Yet the second elder was still alive as his soul still existed. However, that wouldn't last long, lasting only until Zixian took her third step. Realizing that he was a goner, the second elder spoke to Jiao Zhenhai through voice transmission before he was erased from existence. Even if you kill me, the Mystic Sea Dragon clan is already on their way here. It'll only be a matter of time before the Azure Dragon clan falls to them. After the second elder was reduced to nothingness, Zixian turned on her heel and began walking toward Yuan. Her steps, though silent, carried a presence that made the very air part before her. When she stood before him, her body glowing, she leaned in and gave him a passionate kiss with her soft lips. I'm going to take a nap. Work hard to improve your cultivation so we can have more fun later, she said to him before returning to her sword form and going silent. Chapter 1967, Consuming the Tear of the Azure Heavens? Chapter 1967, Consuming the Tear of the Azure Heavens. After putting away number 1 under heaven, Yuan turned to look at Jiao Zhenhai, who was sitting on the floor with a dazed look on his face and said, I apologize for the destruction of this place. Jiao Zhenhai looked around with a dumbfounded look on his face before responding, it's fine. As long as the treasures themselves aren't damaged. Thank you. Now then, about what you were trying to tell me about our offer. Jiao Zhenhai slowly stood up before speaking in a solemn tone. I am willing to give you the tear of the Azure Heavens for the immortal monarch's blood, but I want one more thing from you. What is it? Help me defend my Azure Dragon clan, said Jiao Zhenhai with a serious frown on his face. Defend the Azure Dragon clan? What about you talking about? Yuan raised an eyebrow, unaware of what the second elder said to Jiao Zhenhai through voice transmission. Jiao Zhenhai immediately explained the situation. The Mystic Sea Dragon clan, whom the elders have been working with, are coming here as we speak. The second elder said this to me right before his death through voice transmission. Without the 3 elders, our chances of defeating the Mystic Sea Dragon clan are slim to none. However, with you, and your sword's assistance, we might be able to win. Yuan didn't immediately respond. Zixin had expended most of her energy just now and would probably take several weeks if not months to fully recover. If the Mystic Sea Dragon clan showed up before she recovered, it might get a bit dangerous. Of course, he still had Dragon Goddess Yeo, but he wasn't sure how much she could actually do in her current state. After contemplating for some time, Yuan nodded and said, "All right, it'll help the Azure Dragon clan. However, I will need the tear of the Azure Heavens now. My sword is exhausted after killing the second elder and needs to recover." Jiao Zhenhai nodded, "Okay." Sometime later, Jiao Zhenhai handed the tear of the Azure Heavens to Yuan. "I'm going to use this right now. You should alert the rest of your family. I know this isn't the proper time to ask this, but what does it do?" Jiao Zhenhai couldn't contain his curiosity. However, Yuan shrugged and responded in a genuine voice, "I don't know." "What? Then why do you want it?" "My instincts," he said. Jiao Zhenhai fell silent. After a moment he asked, "Are you going to do it here?" "Preferably. Since nobody can disturb me here." "Don't worry, I won't steal your treasures if that's what you're worried about. I trust you." Without saying anything else, Jiao Zhenhai left the treasury and summoned everyone from the Azure Dragon clan. Meanwhile, Yuan sat on the floor with the tear of the Azure Heavens in his grasp. Yuan's cold resistance has been increasing since he touched the tear of the Azure Heavens, which was a pleasant surprise. "Do any of you guys know what this is?" Yuan asked the others. "No." Lan Yingying quickly responded. "I have also never seen or heard of this treasure before," said Yuning. "That is the heart of the heaven-chilling ice phoenix," said Feng Yuxiang. "This is the heart of a phoenix?" Yuan repeated, raising an eyebrow in surprise. "Yes," Feng Yuxiang confirmed. "The heaven-chilling ice phoenix is a rare and powerful species whose flames don't burn, but freeze everything they touch. Their hearts contain immense Yin energy and are considered priceless among Yin attribute cultivators." "Honestly, I'm surprised one managed to be preserved for this long," Feng Yuxiang remarked. "The heaven-chilling ice phoenix has been extinct for ages after all." "So, what kind of effect does it have?" Yuan asked. "It's quite extraordinary," Feng Yuxiang explained. "For cultivators, it grants the ability to cultivate and wield Yin-attributed energy, even if they had no prior affinity for it. As for beasts, consuming it can transform their bloodline into one aligned with Yin. And if they already possess a Yin-attributed bloodline, it will elevate their lineage to an entirely new level. No wonder the Mystic Sea Dragon clan is trying to destroy the Azure Dragon clan just so they can get their hands on this treasure," Yuan mumbled. "Anyway, I am going to consume this now." Without a moment of hesitation, Yuan brought the heart of the heaven-chilling ice phoenix to his lips and took a bite. Though it had the hardness of crystals, his teeth sank into it effortlessly, as if biting into a piece of delicate cake. The moment it touched his tongue, the crystallized heart melted away like cotton candy, releasing an intense wave of chilling energy that spread through his body. Suddenly, Yuan's entire body erupted in a blaze of azure-colored flames, radiating an intense cold so profound it felt as though he were being burned and frozen simultaneously. The surrounding air trembled, and in the blink of an eye, the entire treasury was coated in a thick layer of glistening ice. Shelves, walls, even the very ground beneath him crystallized under the overwhelming Yin energy now pouring from his body. Yuan himself also turned into an ice statue. As for his cold resistance, it improved at a frightening rate. In just a few days his progress skyrocketed to 99%. Meanwhile, the Azure Dragon clan began mobilizing for war against the Mystic Sea Dragon clan. With a population exceeding 100,000, including those residing in the city, their forces were vast. While not every member was suited for combat, the overwhelming majority had already reached at least the divine realm. The city, once bustling like any ordinary settlement, transformed into a fortress overnight. Barricades rose where markets once stood, defensive formations were activated across the seafloor, and patrols of armored warriors now roamed the area around the Azure Dragon clan's territory. Chapter 1968, Completed Harmonious Heaven Refining Immortal Physique. Chapter 1968, Completed Harmonious Heaven Refining Immortal Physique. Where's Senior Envoy? Jiao Xianbing asked Jiao Zhenhai a month after they began preparing for war. He's in seclusion. Are you sure he'll even be of any help? He's only at the peak of Divine Emperor. Jiao Binglan said, expressing her doubts. And for the record, I still don't believe he managed to defeat the First Elder. Jiao Zhenhai looked at his foolish daughter and said, I didn't mention this, but it was he who killed the second elder. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be standing here right now. What? He killed the second elder, who is the strongest amongst the three elders. The others from the Azure Dragon clan expressed shock and bewilderment after learning of this. Binglan, you need to start respecting him or you'll come to regret it later, Jiao Xianbing said to her. Your hate is unreasonable in the first place. He didn't do anything to offend you and he's helped our clan tremendously. If it weren't for him, the three elders would have continued to stab us in the back. That's... Jiao Binglan fell silent. Suddenly, someone rushed into the room and shouted, We've spotted the Mystic Sea Dragon clan. They'll arrive in our territory in 2 weeks. How many people do they have? Jiao Zhenhai questioned. Around 50,000. They only brought a fourth of their forces? These bastards are underestimating us a little too much. Jiao Zhenhai gritted his teeth in frustration. Yet he didn't dare to underestimate their opponents. The Mystic Sea Dragon clan was a royal bloodline just like them after all. At the same time, Yuan had just finished absorbing the tier of the Azure Heavens. Boom. The moment Yuan completed his Harmonious Heaven refining Immortal Physique, the bottleneck that kept him at the peak of Divine Emperor shattered, and his cultivation began soaring to the next level. In the blink of an eye, Yuan's cultivation surged to the peak of the Divine Ancestor realm, just a single step away from Immortal Ascension. However, entering the Immortal Ascension realm wasn't as simple as accumulating enough spiritual energy. A cultivator needed exceptional soul strength and, more importantly, profound insight into the nature of cultivation itself. This was the barrier that trapped countless experts at the Divine Ancestor level. Of course, Yuan was no ordinary cultivator. His soul strength already rivaled, if not surpassed, that of immortals, and with the vast experience and insight had accumulated from his past lives, he only needed to attempt entering it. No, he could enter Immortal Ascension even in his sleep. After taking a deep breath, Yuan began his attempt to break through to Immortal Ascension, the first step on his path toward true immortality. Moments later, a surge of immortal qi erupted from Yuan's body, flooding the air with boundless pressure. To ascend to the next level, one must continually refine their soul strength and deepen their insights into the Tao. However, for someone like Yuan, it was merely a question of whether he chose to ascend. Mere seconds after stepping into the first level of Immortal Ascension, another surge of immortal qi burst forth from Yuan's body as his cultivation soared into the second level. From that moment on, Yuan advanced through each level as if it were mere child's play. In the blink of an eye, he reached the 9th level of Immortal Ascension, just one step away from becoming an immortal. Yet that final step was unimaginably vast, a chasm where countless cultivators had faltered and fallen. Of course, if Yuan wanted to take that step, he could easily do so. However, when he attempted to do so, he was met by a familiar barrier. So my physique still has room to grow, huh? Yuan mused. Come to think of it, my fire and cold immunities are only at the first stage while my poison and lightning immunities have already reached their peak. Congratulations on reaching the peak of Immortal Ascension, young master. Feng Yuxiang cheered loudly. You're now only a step away from becoming a bronze immortal, said Lan Yingying. I have never seen or heard anyone going from the first level to the peak in one sitting. Yuning muttered in a dazed voice. It's not just my cultivation that benefited from the tier of the Azure Heavens. I also acquired new abilities. Yuan flipped his palms and summoned a blue flame. That's the Heaven-Chilling Ice Phoenix's unique flames, the Heaven-Freezing Flame. Feng Yuxiang exclaimed. This is just one of the few abilities I acquired. I'll show you the rest later, Yuan said with a smile. Anyway, how long have I been cultivating? He then asked. A little over a month. Since nobody disturbed me, I guess the Mystic Sea Dragon clan has yet to arrive. Alright, let's go check out the situation. Yuan left the treasury shortly after. The moment Yuan exited the treasury, Jiao Zhenhai sensed it and immediately stopped everything he was doing to meet with Yuan. Senior Envoy, are you done with your seclusion? Jiao Zhenhai asked him. Yuan nodded and said, yes. He released some of his cultivation. 9th level Immortal Ascension. Did you really reach that level from the peak of Divine Emperor in just a month? Jiao Zhenhai cried out loud, not daring to believe his eyes. It's mostly thanks to the tier of the Azure Heavens. What? Tier of the Azure Heavens? What is he talking about, father? Jiao Binglan inquired with a dazed look on her face. Jiao Zhenhai, who kept their deal a secret this entire time, finally explained the full situation to everyone there. Chapter 1969, The Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Invasion? Chapter 1969, The Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Invasion? What? You gave our family heirloom to him? Binglan exclaimed with a horrified expression after hearing Jiao Zhenhai's explanation. It wasn't just Jiao Binglan. Jiao Xianbing and the others were also just as shocked. None of them could have expected Jiao Zhenhai would be willing to part with their family heirloom. I understand your feelings, but what use is our family heirloom if our clan is destroyed in the process of trying to protect it? Moreover, we will receive the immortal monarch's blood. This is a blessing none of you can even begin to fathom. Jiao Zhenhai said. The immortal monarch's blood? Binglan and the others turned to look at Yuan with suspicious gazes. Yuan smiled back and said, "Thank you for letting me consume the tear of the azure heavens. Here is the immortal monarch's blood as promised." Before coming out of the treasury, Yuan collected several drops of his blood and stored them in small glass vials. He retrieved a wooden box and handed it over to Jiao Zhenhai, who accepted it with trembling hands. Jiao Zhenhai wasted no time opening the box the moment it was in his grasp, and sure enough, there were 6 vials resting inside, just enough for him and his children. The Mystic Sea Dragon clan will arrive in 2 weeks. We need to absorb this to strengthen ourselves before then. Jiao Zhenhai handed a drop of the immortal monarch's blood to each of his children. Thank you, Senior Envoy. Jiao Xianbing bowed to him. Yuan shook his head and said, "No, you don't need to thank me. I didn't give it to you for free. It was an exchange." Jiao Zhenhai and the others wasted no time and went to absorb the immortal monarch's blood. Meanwhile, Yuan asked around about the Mystic Sea Dragon clan. Who are the Mystic Sea Dragon clan? Yuan asked the first person he came across. They've been longtime rivals of the Azure Dragon clan since ancient times, as both possess the power to command the waters. However, the Mystic Sea Dragon clan has been adapting more ice attribute techniques lately. The Azure Dragon clan and the Mystic Sea Dragon clan have clashed many times before, but never with stakes this high. Until now, their conflicts were little more than skirmishes. I see. What about the clan leader's wife? What about the rest of his family? Yuan then asked about the Azure Dragon clan's situation. The mistress died trying to defeat the intruder who tried to take away our family heirloom many thousands of years ago. As for the others, while they're not dead, they all left the Azure Dragon clan long ago to look for a cure for the curse. However, the clan leader should have already notified them of the situation, so they should be heading back here as we speak. I see. Yuan mumbled. Hearing that the Mystic Sea Dragon clan has been learning ice attribute techniques made it very clear why they wanted the tear of the azure heavens, the heaven-chilling ice phoenix's heart. Unfortunately for them, Yuan had already absorbed the treasure for himself, so they were waging a pointless war against the Azure Dragon clan. This made Yuan wonder if the Mystic Sea Dragon clan would back out once they learn about it. A week later, Jiao Zhenhai and the others emerged from seclusion, having fully absorbed the immortal monarch's blood. The first thing they did was test their bloodlines, and as expected, not only had their bloodline's purity been restored, it had even surpassed its former peak, and everyone except Xianbing still had poison in their body. As for Xianbing, who wasn't affected by the poison, his bloodline had become the purest and most powerful in the clan's history by a wide margin. Seeing Xuanbing's results gave immense hope and joy to the others, who were eager to have their poison cleansed by Yuan. Senior Envoy, please take care of us after we deal with the Mystic Sea Dragon clan. A young man approached Yuan and bowed to him. Yuan silently nodded. To be honest, I was skeptical about the immortal monarch's blood being real until I absorbed it, Jiao Zhenhai admitted with a stiff smile on his face. But now, I am really glad I accepted your offer. Pleasure doing business with you, Yuan smiled. The following day, something else happened that greatly boosted the Azure Dragon clan's spirit and morale. Reinforcement had arrived. Father, grandfather and grandmother have returned. Jiao Binglan exclaimed as she hurried to his side. Truly? Jiao Zhenhai gasped. Before he could take a single step, 2 figures appeared before him, a middle-aged man and woman, both bearing the unmistakable traits of the Azure Dragon clan. Father, mother, you made it back in time. Jiao Zhenhai hurried to greet them. Although their reinforcement was only 2 individuals, they were both powerhouses at the God Ascension realm, and Jiao Zhenhai's parents. We rushed back immediately after receiving your emergency contact. What is the situation right now? Asked the middle-aged man. The Mystic Sea Dragon clan will arrive in less than a week, said Jiao Zhenhai. Allow me to keep you up to date for now. Over the next several hours, Jiao Zhenhai recounted everything to his parents, from their fateful encounter with Yuan to how he had resolved their crisis. He made no attempt to conceal the fact that he had traded away their family heirloom in exchange for Yuan's help and the immortal monarch's blood. By the time he finished, both of his parents were trembling, not from rage at the Mystic Sea Dragon clan, nor from the loss of the heirloom, but for an entirely different reason. You little brat. How dare you only ask for enough immortal monarch's blood for your children and yourself? What about us, your own parents? Have you already forgotten about us in such a short time? His father stood up and roared angrily. His mother expressed similar complaints. In other words, they were angry about being left out of a once-in-lifetime experience. Chapter 1970, The Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Invasion 2. Chapter 1970, The Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Invasion 2. When Jiao Zhenhai felt his parents' pressure bearing down on him, he quickly said, wait. He was the one who initiated the offer. 6 drops of the immortal monarch's blood are already a lot. If I asked for more, he would have likely refused. His parents sat back down and withdrew their pressure after hearing this. Do you think he'll be willing to give 2 more drops of the immortal monarch's blood, if he even has them, that is? Why are you asking me? You should ask him instead, Jiao Zhenhai shrugged. His parents immediately stood back up and began beating him. Sometime later, Jiao Zhenhai brought his parents to Yuan. Senior Envoy, do you have some time? My parents would like to speak with you. Your parents? Yuan raised an eyebrow as his gaze met the 2 individuals standing behind Jiao Zhenhai. My name is Jiao Longfei, his father. Jiao Longfei said as he grabbed Jiao Zhenhai's clothes and yanked him far away. I'm Jiao Xuanji, his mother. If you don't mind, would like to have a brief conversation with you. Yuan had already guessed their intentions and greeted them with a calm smile. You're here to ask about the immortal monarch's blood, aren't you? The couple was stunned by his directness, caught off guard, and left momentarily speechless. While that is part of the conversation, we mainly wanted to thank you for helping our family. Jiao Longfei responded in a stiff tone. Yuan then said, unfortunately, my transaction with the clan leader has already ended, and I am only helping the Azure Dragon clan because you have something that I need. That's. Just as Jiao Xuanji opened her mouth, Yuan interrupted. However, that doesn't mean I cannot make a new transaction with you too. If you want the immortal monarch's blood, I still have some left. Really? What do you want for them? Jiao Xuanji exclaimed, her voice full of excitement. 1. No, we'll give you 2 treasures from our treasury for each drop. Jiao Longfei said as he raised 2 fingers before him. Yuan responded by showing 3 fingers. Make it 3 and you'll have a deal, so 6 treasures in total. Deal. Although Jiao Xuanji hesitated for a split second, he quickly made up his mind and agreed to Yuan's offer. Thank you. Here you go. Yuan immediately retrieved 2 vials and handed each of them one. Since the Mystic Sea Dragon clan will be invading soon, he'll give these to you ahead of time. You won't regret it. The couple immediately left to absorb the blood. 3 days later, the Mystic Sea Dragon clan arrived earlier than expected, before Jiao Zhenhai's parents could finish absorbing the blood. However, since they have already started absorbing the blood, they couldn't be disturbed, so the Azure Dragon clan had to deal with the invasion without them for now. Meanwhile, the Mystic Sea Dragon clan came to a halt just outside the Azure Dragon clan's underwater city, their 50,000-strong army standing tall, exuding unwavering confidence. Amidst the sea of soldiers, a lone figure with a familiar face stepped forward and spoke in a voice so powerful it echoed through the city, reaching even the depths of the Azure Dragon clan's living quarters. Azure Dragon clan, the Mystic Sea Dragon clan will grant you 24 hours to hand over the tier of the Azure Heavens. If you do not meet our demand within the time limit, don't blame us for whatever happens afterward. That's the 3rd elder. So the rumors calling him a traitor were true. The people of the Azure Dragon clan were greatly shocked to see the 3rd elder standing with the Mystic Sea Dragon clan. Jiao Zhenhai appeared before them and sneered coldly, so you'll turn around and leave if we give you the tier of the Azure Heavens? The 3rd elder laughed out loud before responding, of course not. If you hand over the treasure, the Mystic Sea Dragon clan will spare your lives. However, you'll have to come under our clan's name as servants. The Azure Dragon clan as servants? In your damn dreams. Suddenly, Yuan appeared beside Jiao Zhenhai and scanned the place with a composed expression. Where's the 1st elder? Did he still end up dying even after you saved him? Yuan asked calmly. In the very next instant, a surge of overwhelming bloodlust swept through the area as a new figure suddenly appeared. Yuan shifted his attention to this newcomer, a handsome young man he didn't recognize. The handsome young man then roared, "I only lost that time because I had underestimated you and didn't use my full strength to avoid being exposed. It will not happen again. This time I swear I will shred you to pieces." "You managed to get a new body in such short time? I'm impressed," Yuan said with a faint smile. Sure enough, the striking young man before him was none other than the first elder, who had transferred his soul into this new vessel after Yuan's poison had destroyed his original body. However, having transferred his soul to a new body in haste, the first elder suffered a severe backlash, and his cultivation plummeted by 2 full levels, diminishing him to a mere true immortal. "Whether the Azure Dragon clan hands over the treasure or not, you're dead meat, human." Jiao Zhenhai then stepped forward and asked, "Where are the rest of the Mystic Sea Dragon clan? I highly doubt they'd entrust such a massive army to you and let you come here alone." The third elder smiled and said, "Wouldn't you like to know? Unfortunately, I cannot tell you." Jiao Zhenhai and the others frowned, feeling uneasy about the whole situation. What if there are more of them than the 50,000 in front of us right now? They all considered this possibility. After a moment of silence, Jiao Zhenhai spoke, "Is that so? Well, I have some unfortunate news for you too. The tier of the Azure Heavens you bastards so desperately want is no longer in our hands. We gave it away." "You what?" The first elder and the third elder shouted simultaneously, their eyes growing as wide as saucers. Chapter 1971, The Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Invasion, 3. Chapter 1971, The Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Invasion, 3. Why you're lying. There's no way the Azure Dragon clan gave away its family heirloom. The third elder pointed his trembling hand at them and shouted, his voice filled with doubt and disbelief. "Who do you think you're fooling, Jiao Zhenhai? We know you better than anyone here. You wouldn't dare to part with that treasure even at your deathbed." The first elder laughed out loud, not believing it for a second. Jiao Zhenhai sneered and said, "You don't have to believe me, but you'll end up fighting a pointless war at this rate." "Pointless? Do you really think the tier of the Azure Heavens is the only reason we're here?" The third elder shook his head. "The Azure Dragon clan and the Mystic Sea Dragon clan have been at odds with each other since ancient times. Don't you think it's finally time to end it once and for all?" The first elder said. "Don't you both possess royal bloodlines? Wouldn't it cause serious complications if the two of you were to clash?" Yuan suddenly asked. "What would you know, human? Just because we have royal bloodlines doesn't mean we're allies. If anything, it only fuels our rivalry." The first elder retorted coldly. "What should we do?" Jiao Zhenhai suddenly spoke to Yuan using voice transmission. "It's obvious they want back down even though we no longer have the tier of the Azure Heavens. Should we just wait out the 24-hour limit and see what happens? This also gives my parents time to absorb the immortal monarch's blood." Yuan responded, "While waiting may seem like the right thing to do, I have a feeling there are more of them than it appears. It's also suspicious that nobody from the Mystic Sea Dragon clan is present. They might be planning an ambush separately. If that were the case, we should deal with those present before they can arrive." Jiao Zhenhai fell silent, reflecting on Yuan's words. It was definitely suspicious that the Mystic Sea Dragon clan had only committed a fraction of their forces to what was supposed to be all-out war, and not a single true member of their clan was present. The more he thought about it, the stronger his unease grew. Since war is unavoidable, we need to make the first move and cripple their current forces before their reinforcements arrive. Having made his decision, Jiao Zhenhai summoned his weapon, a majestic blue and gold trident, leveled it at the Mystic Sea Dragon clan's army, and roared with thunderous fury, "Kill them all!" "What?" The first elder and third elder were stunned by Jiao Zhenhai's sudden declaration, their expressions frozen in disbelief. Behind them, the army stirred with visible confusion and hesitation. None had expected the Azure Dragon clan to launch the first strike. In the very next moment, nearly 80,000 experts surged out from the city like a tidal wave, swiftly encircling the Mystic Sea Dragon clan. The negotiation has ended. "Kill everyone," the third elder roared. And so, the Azure Dragon clan and the Mystic Sea Dragon clan finally clashed. The battlefield roared with chaos as countless divine realm cultivators exchanged blows, shaking the depths of the sea. Among them, the Azure Dragon clan fielded nearly 2,000 immortals, outnumbering the Mystic Sea Dragon clan, who had barely half that number at their command. Jiao Zhenhai lunged toward the third elder with unwavering resolve, while the first elder, eyes burning with fury, pursued Yuan. If you couldn't defeat me while you're at the God Ascension realm, what makes you think you'll be able to defeat me as a true immortal? Yuan remarked as he deflected the first elder's first strike. Don't you dare underestimate me. My cultivation may have lowered, but I can still use celestial qi. The first elder roared as he unleashed his celestial qi. Although it wasn't as strong as before, it was still enough to pressure Yuan, who'd increased his cultivation to the peak of immortal ascension. With number 1 under heaven in his grasp, Yuan fought the first elder while constantly being suppressed by celestial qi. Despite the vast disparity in their cultivation, Yuan wasn't being pushed back. Wait a second. His cultivation is at the peak of immortal ascension. But it was only at the peak of Divine Emperor when I last saw him a few months ago. The first elder realized this amidst their fight, which shook him to the core. Oh. It's impossible that his cultivation increased that much in such a short time. This must have been his real cultivation since the very beginning. Even if Yuan had told him the truth, the first elder still wouldn't believe it. Hey, I've been wondering, aren't you curious about the second elder's situation? What? The first elder frowned. The two of you left him behind after all. I have no idea what you're talking about. The second elder has nothing to do with the Mystic Sea Dragon clan. Yuan chuckled at the first elder's attempt to mislead him. There's no point trying to play dumb. Didn't you find it weird that the second elder isn't present at such an important event? He's already exposed himself. As a matter of fact, he's already dead. What? The first elder suddenly stopped fighting and backed away. Impossible. The second elder's strength rivals even Jiao Zhenhai. It's true. Do you want to know who killed him? Yuan pointed at himself and revealed with a cold grin on his face, the second elder died to my sword. Ah. You killed the second elder? That's your biggest bullshit yet. Yuan shook his head and elaborated, no, I didn't say that I killed him. I said my sword killed him. What's the damn difference? I'd love to show you, but unfortunately my sword is still asleep. Instead, why don't I show you something else? Yuan stowed away number 1 under heaven and faced the first elder without any weapons. What trick do you have up your sleeves now? The first elder immediately increased his guard, as he had already experienced Yuan's trickery several times. Chapter 1972, The Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Invasion 4. Chapter 1972, The Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Invasion 4. A trick, huh? Well, I guess it may seem like that to you. After putting away his weapon, Yuan slowly approached the first elder. Seeing this, the first elder hastily distanced himself from Yuan. A profound light flickered within Yuan's eyes, and he spoke in a low but commanding tone, halt. The first elder was greatly shocked when his body suddenly stopped listening to his commands and halted all movements. Get on your knees. As if Yuan's words held dominion over his very soul, the first elder dropped to his knees and knelt before him. What is going on? What did you? Shut up. You will only speak when given permission. The first elder tried to speak, but not a single word escaped. His lips felt as heavy as a mountain, and even the act of opening his mouth was beyond him. He frantically darted his gaze across the battlefield, desperate to see if anyone was witnessing this humiliation. But in the midst of the blood-soaked chaos, where every cultivator fought for their life, not a single soul noticed the silent, one-sided submission playing out between Yuan and the first elder. What the hell is going on? Why isn't my body listening to me? Did he poison me again? But when did he do it and how? The first elder believed he was poisoned again, but had never experienced or heard of such a powerful poison. What's on your mind? Let me guess. Are you thinking that ID poisoned you again? Yuan suddenly spoke. The first elder's eyes widened with surprise at Yuan's words. So I'm right, huh? Well, fortunately for you, I didn't poison you. The surprise on the first elder's face turned to puzzlement after hearing this. If he wasn't poisoned, what could be the cause of this phenomenon? Since you're going to die soon, I'll let you in on a secret. Yuan moved his lips near the first elder's ears but spoke through voice transmission just in case. I was lying when I said that I was Dragon Goddess Yu's envoy. In reality, I am the Immortal Monarch. The first elder's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets from shock. The Immortal Monarch? What kind of nonsense is he talking about? However, as much as he wanted to deny it, it would explain why he was obeying Yuan's every command. Now, die for me. Yuan wasted no time and commanded the first elder to die. The first elder coughed up a mouthful of blood as he subconsciously destroyed his own heart. However, although the first elder's physical body died, his soul was still alive, and while his cultivation had dropped to the true immortal realm, his soul was still at the God Ascension level. Yuan knew he couldn't kill the first elder so easily, nor did he care to try. Instead, he calmly retrieved Dragon God's vengeance and, with a flick of his sleeves, forcefully cast the first elder's soul into the weapon, leaving his fate to Dragon Goddess Yeo. The moment the soul was sealed within, Dragon God's vengeance trembled violently, as though roaring in fury, echoing the wrath of the goddess within. "He'll probably have an earful later." Yuan swallowed nervously. The trembling stopped a few moments later, and since the first elder's soul hadn't been ejected from the weapon, it was clear what Dragon Goddess Yeo did to him. This made Yuan wonder if feeding the souls of powerhouses to Dragon Goddess Yeo would help speed up her recovery. Let's think about this later. Yuan shifted his gaze to the rest of the battlefield, where thousands of mutilated corpses lay scattered amidst blood-stained waters, most of them belonging to the Mystic Sea Dragon clan. He thought about using the Immortal Monarch's powers to assist the Azure Dragon clan, but it'd require a tremendous amount of energy to command so many powerful beings, and there was still the possibility of enemy reinforcements. In the end, Yuan decided to just use his own strength for the time being. With the Dragon God's vengeance in his grasp, Yuan began attacking every single enemy fighter in sight, targeting mostly those within the divine realm since they were the easiest targets and were the most abundant. After being targeted by Yuan, the poor divine realm experts stood no chance as all of them were killed within a single strike. As the number of Yuan's victims increased, so did the strength of his weapon through its second unique ability. Not only that, but he was slowly progressing his unique quest that required 100 million kills. Unfortunately, he was still very far away from completing it. After slaughtering thousands of divine realm experts from the Mystic Sea Dragon clan's side, Yuan's presence could no longer be ignored, and he had finally drawn the gaze of the Immortal Realm cultivators. However, the Immortals were far too prideful to lower themselves by engaging a mere Immortal Ascension realm human, one who had yet to even set foot into true immortality. Thus, those who were also in the Immortal Ascension realm began attacking Yuan. "Why don't you pick on someone that's on the same level as you instead of picking on the weak?" A peak Immortal Ascension shouted as he pounced at Yuan. Yuan gave the Immortal Ascension expert a glance before using Shadow Veil, instantly disappearing from his opponent's view. "What? Where did he?" Before the man could even finish his sentence, Yuan had already arrived behind him like a shadow to land a critical strike. "Impossible!" The man muttered his last words as Yuan brutally yanked the Dragon God's vengeance from his corpse and watched as it slowly sank to the ocean floor. "If you want to stop me, you'd better come at me with everything you've got." Yuan laughed out loud as he continued slaughtering the Mystic Sea Dragon clan's army. "As somebody stop him." Ah! The Mystic Sea Dragon clan's army quickly descended into chaos, their formation crumbling under the weight of fear and confusion. Chapter 1973, The Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Invasion 5. Chapter 1973, The Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Invasion 5. Noticing how fast their army was falling apart, the Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's immortals could no longer sit still and went after Yuan. "About time I have some worthy opponents." Yuan laughed as he confronted a bronze immortal, and their immortal chi clashed. "What?" And being pushed back. The bronze immortal was utterly stunned that he was being forced back by someone still in the Immortal Ascension realm, a human cultivator who hadn't even truly stepped into immortality. How is his immortal chi so powerful? He's not even an immortal yet. The other immortals were equally shaken by the sheer intensity of Yuan's immortal chi, and the true immortals there wore grim expressions, unable to hide their disbelief. Yuan's immortal chi rivaled their own, despite still being in Immortal Ascension, while they stood at the very peak of the immortal realm, on the verge of stepping into God Ascension. In the cultivation world, one only attains true immortality after transcending the Immortal Ascension realm and stepping into the ranks of bronze immortals. Though the immortal realm consists of only 4 distinct stages, bronze, silver, golden, and true immortal, the gap between each is vast, often requiring as much time and cultivation as ascending through all 9 levels of Immortal Ascension. Yet Yuan, a mere cultivator still within Immortal Ascension, had already surpassed even the true immortals. What would happen if Yuan were to become a bronze immortal, let alone a true immortal? How terrifying would his power become then? No one present could begin to fathom it, not even the God Ascension cultivators who already stood beyond immortality. We must kill that human now or hell become a huge threat to the Mystic Sea Dragon clan and our plans. The Immortals quickly exchanged voice transmissions in secret, and after a brief but heavy silence, reached a unanimous decision, to strike at Yuan together, even if it meant staining their pride and shattering their reputation. Suddenly the battlefield shifted dramatically. Without warning, hundreds of Immortals, even those already locked in fierce combat, abandoned their fights and turned their focus toward a single target, Yuan. Senior Envoy. Watch out. They're all targeting you. Members of the Azure Dragon clan hurriedly shouted warnings to Yuan as they pursued the forces of the Mystic Sea Dragon clan going after him. Oh. Despite the looming threat, Yuan showed not the slightest trace of panic. In fact, a faint smile tugged at his lips. To think so many mighty Immortals would band together against a mere mortal like me? I'm truly honored. To show my gratitude, Yuan said calmly, his smile widening, allow me to face you all with my full strength. What? The bronze immortal fighting Yuan was shocked to hear he wasn't even fighting at his full potential. As the Immortals closed in, a profound, chaotic and overwhelming aura erupted from Yuan's body like a volcanic explosion, shaking the battlefield and halting even the boldest in their tracks. What is that ominous energy? It's making my soul tremble. The Immortals cried out in alarm, their faces twisted with confusion and unease as they encountered chaos energy for the first time, its presence utterly foreign, yet instinctively terrifying. Although Yuan's main cultivation had already surpassed that of his chaotic heart, he intended to use it solely to enhance his own physique. And with the unparalleled destructive force of chaos energy, his combat prowess rose to an unfathomable degree while his cultivation remained the same. Why did you all stop? If you want come to me, then it'll come to you. Yuan laughed, his voice echoing with battle lust as he lunged toward the bronze immortal before him, his speed and power now magnified many times over. Overwhelmed by Yuan's chaotic aura, the bronze immortal instinctively took a step back. But the moment he turned to retreat, Yuan's eyes blazed with radiant gold. Where do you think you're going? Yuan roared, unleashing Dragon's gaze at full power, his voice thundering like the heavens themselves. The bronze immortal instantly froze in place, his soul gripped by an overwhelming pressure that crashed down like a divine hammer. In the very next moment, without Yuan lifting a finger, the bronze immortal coughed up a mouthful of blood and collapsed. His soul shattered under the weight of Dragon's gaze. After all the power he had gained within the primal expanse, especially with his dragon powers, Yuan's Dragon's gaze had evolved to a terrifying degree. It was potent enough to shatter souls outright, especially when unleashed at full intensity. Did he just use Dragon's gaze? Why does he know that technique? I thought he was human. Even though they weren't directly targeted, Yuan's Dragon's gaze was so powerful that it sent tremors through the souls of everyone nearby, leaving them shaken to their core. Not just Dragon's gaze, he can use Dragon Awakening too. He's definitely a dragon. We were fooled into underestimating him. Snapping out of their daze, the Immortals steeled themselves and renewed their assault, launching a coordinated attack against Yuan with grim determination. Not daring to get too close to Yuan because of his Dragon's gaze, the Immortals attacked him from afar. Hundreds of martial techniques rained down on Yuan all at once, yet he made no effort to dodge or defend. He simply continued to charge forward, letting the attacks crash against his body without the slightest concern. The combined assaults from the bronze and silver Immortals couldn't even leave a scratch on Yuan's body, while strikes from the golden Immortals merely allowed him to feel the sting of real pain. As for the true Immortals, their attacks were powerful enough to tear through his defense and draw blood, yet he regenerated any damage received instantly, recovering in full before the Immortals could even blink their eyes in astonishment. What the fuck kind of physique does he have? The Immortals were in utter disbelief, their eyes wide with shock as they witnessed the futility of their combined assault. Meanwhile, every time Yuan struck with Dragon God's vengeance, it would claim a life without fail. I must be a trick. Don't let him deceive you. Keep attacking. The Immortals resumed their assault, their faces with deep, growing despair. Chapter 1974, The Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Invasion 6. Chapter 1974, The Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Invasion 6. As the Immortals relentlessly unleashed their martial techniques on Yuan, he continued to ignore their attacks and struck whoever was the closest to him, reducing their numbers with terrifying speed and indifference, almost as if the difference in their cultivation meant nothing in his eyes. As time passed, Yuan's prowess only continued to increase as the dragon god's vengeance claimed more victims with a dragon bloodline. Fuck. Why aren't our attacks working on him? Where did this monster come from? Scatter. Get away from him. I can't. He's too fast. Damn it. How is he disappearing before our eyes, even escaping detection from our divine sense? This doesn't make any sense. Though it appeared that Yuan was merely chasing them down, he was, in truth, weaving shadow veil into every movement, distorting their perception and turning the battlefield into a nightmare of illusion and dread. In the enemy's eyes, Yuan was teleporting all over the place while leaving behind clones of himself. Of course, these clones were mere illusions created using shadows with his shadow puppet technique. Moreover, the Azure Dragon clan arrived in force to support Yuan, launching a coordinated assault that both distracted the enemy and sealed off their escape route. Witnessing their forces being decimated and thrown into disarray by a single individual, the Mystic Sea Dragon clan's God Ascension realm powerhouses could no longer stand by. They finally moved, intent on stopping Yuan themselves. The Mystic Sea Dragon clan initially showed up with 4 God Ascension realm powerhouses, but with the first elder gone and the third elder occupied with Jiao Jinhai, only 2 of them were available to deal with Yuan. Meanwhile, the Azure Dragon clan originally had 7 God Ascension realm powerhouses, but with the 3 elders' betrayal they were down to 4, Jiao Jinhai, his parents, and the commander of the Azure Dragon clan's army. The moment the commander of the Azure Dragon clan's army sensed the movements of the 2 God Ascension realm powerhouses, he rushed to intercept, but he was only able to hold off one, leaving the other free to advance toward Yuan. Because of their immense power and overwhelming influence, an unspoken rule existed in the cultivation world. God Ascension realm cultivators should not interfere in large-scale battles like the ongoing war between the Azure Dragon clan and the Mystic Sea Dragon clan unless they were the only ones standing or the situation had reached a critical point and left them no other choice. Of course, since this was merely an unspoken rule and not a real law, it couldn't be enforced, and there were always those who disregarded it entirely, acting as they pleased even if it damaged their reputation, just like the first elder and the third elder. Once the God Ascension realm cultivator entered the fray, Yuan was forced to halt his slaughter and turn his full attention to the approaching threat. His opponent stood at the second level of God Ascension, the same as the first elder. Yet, he radiated a pressure and presence that made him seem incomparably more formidable, as though they existed on entirely different tiers. Once a cultivator stepped into the God Ascension realm, advancing even a single level could take thousands, if not millions, of years. Because of this, it was common for cultivators in their realm to be at the same level yet differ vastly in strength, comprehension, and abilities. The first elder had only recently stepped into the second level of the God Ascension realm, and as a result, his strength fell far short of its true potential. In contrast, Yuan's current opponent had long since stabilized at that level, and from the aura he exuded, he seemed to be on the verge of breaking through to the third. I don't know how you killed the first elder, but you won't get to experience such a miracle for a second time, said the man. We'll see about that. Yuan suddenly used Dragon's Gaze without warning. Despite being hit by Yuan's Dragon's Gaze at full force, his opponent didn't so much as flinch as if the technique had no effect on him whatsoever. It's very impressive that you've reached that level with your cultivation. However, before a real powerhouse, it's nothing but cheap tricks, said the man. I can see that you're a little stronger than that traitor, but so what? Yuan spoke with a calm smile. In the end, you'll still end up like him. When threatened, dogs bark in fear, which is exactly what you're doing. You can't even break through my celestial chi, much less touch a single hair on my body. Yuan didn't need to verify the man's words to know they were true. At his current level, he stood no chance against him in a fair fight. The only reason he had managed to defeat the second elder, who was at the 5th level of God Ascension, was because he had caught him off guard and poisoned him. Even then, he would not have been able to kill the second elder without Zishen's assistance. As for his current opponent, he was very wary of Yuan and also had no openings with his entire body covered in celestial chi. You're right. Yuan suddenly spoke. I do not have the capability to defeat you right now. However, I can definitely humiliate you. What? The man frowned. Put away your celestial chi. Despite having his guard up, the man could not have anticipated Yuan using the Immortal Monarch's ability. What is this? The man was bewildered when his body listened to Yuan and began withdrawing his celestial chi. He hastily tried to resist the command, succeeded, and managed to stop himself from removing all of his celestial chi. However, had already removed some of his celestial chi by then, giving Yuan enough time to strike once. Don't move. Yuan struck using the dragon god's vengeance with all of his might, driving it directly into the man's chest. The man hastily retreated, but it was too late. By the time he managed to pull away, a gaping hole had already been torn through the center of his chest. Ichem? What's this? Not only did I manage to penetrate your celestial chi, but I even managed to put a hole in your chest. Yuan acted surprised, even letting out a cheeky chuckle as the man stared at the hole in silence. Chapter 1975, Wielding Celestial Chi. Chapter 1975, Wielding Celestial Chi. Ho, how dare you, a mere mortal. Mock me. The God Ascension expert trembled in anger as he felt a sense of humiliation he hasn't experienced for a long time. In his eyes, it was akin to an elephant being crippled by a single ant whom he could easily crush with a finger. I'll fucking skin you alive. The man suddenly released a beastly roar as he abandoned his human form and grew into a massive whale that could cover the entire underwater city. When a beast reverts to its original form, its overall strength would rise exponentially but at the cost of greatly reduced mobility, a trait many regarded as the most critical advantage in battle. For this reason, most chose to remain in their human form even in the face of death. However, the God Ascension expert wasn't worried about losing his mobility since his opponent couldn't penetrate his defenses without trickery. I don't know what trickery you used just now, but it will not work a second time. Even as he stood before a colossal entity capable of swallowing an entire city with a single breath, Yuan's expression remained unchanged with a calm smile on his face. In the very next moment, the whale unleashed a barrage of celestial chi, shaped into countless thin needles, but in reality each needle was massive, towering like skyscrapers as they rained down toward Yuan with devastating force. Though consumed by rage, the whale had not lost his reason and remained aware of his comrades battling nearby. As such, he restrained his power, opting for these compressed, controlled attacks to avoid causing collateral damage amidst the chaos. As for Yuan, since there was nothing he could realistically do to the celestial chi, he was forced to dodge the incoming strikes. However, he purposefully didn't completely avoid them and would allow the celestial chi to land on some parts of his body so he could train his comprehension. Looks like you're having trouble. Need some assistance? Yuning suddenly asked. What do you have in mind? Unless I can get through his celestial chi, it won't matter. Only celestial chi can cut through celestial chi. Although my cultivation has dropped to golden immortal, I can still sense and manipulate celestial chi to a certain extent, she said. Though I have never tried this before, I can theoretically help you gather celestial chi through your dantian, allowing you limited use. It's a very reckless thing to do and I wouldn't have even brought this up if I weren't in your dantian, or I think your body couldn't handle celestial chi. However, it's clear that your body is beyond common sense. An excited smile appeared on Yuan's face after hearing Yuning's suggestion. Let's try it. He quickly said without an ounce of hesitation in his voice. Okay, give me a moment. A few seconds later Yuning said, I'm gathering celestial chi now. Yuning began collecting celestial chi while using Yuan's dantian as its storage. The very next moment, Yuan coughed up a mouthful of blood as searing pain tore through his body, feeling as if every inch of him was swelling beyond control, on the verge of bursting apart from within. Upon witnessing this, Yuning was overwhelmed with fear and immediately ceased her actions, unable to bring herself to continue. Keep going. Yuan suddenly said. But. It's only a little painful. I can handle it. Despite her reluctance, Yuning began gathering celestial chi again, albeit slowly. What is he? The whale stopped attacking Yuan when he noticed celestial chi was being gathered around him. No. It can't be. His voice shook when he realized what was happening. He's a mortal. Mortals cannot wield celestial chi. It shouldn't be possible. It took some time, but Yuan eventually adapted to the celestial chi coursing through his body and managed to move again. Of course, the pain remained intense, but it was now bearable. It's been a while since I last felt like this. In this moment, the celestial chi surging through Yuan made him feel nearly invincible, a sensation reminiscent of when he wielded heaven's supremacy, as though nothing in the world could stand in his way. You. What the fuck are you? The whale roared in confusion and fear as he continued bombarding Yuan with celestial chi. Now that he could wield celestial chi, Yuan no longer avoided it. Instead, he met it head-on, clashing with it directly and without hesitation. With the dragon god's vengeance cloaked in celestial chi, Yuan bore through his opponent's celestial chi with almost no effort. Yuning swallowed nervously as she watched how skillfully Yuan wielded the celestial chi like it was part of his own body. Even though he may have wielded celestial chi in his previous lives, to do so in a mortal's body is really something else. Yuning had already regarded Yuan as a monster of boundless potential, but what he was doing now defied even her wildest expectations, leaving her utterly stunned. What's wrong? Not so confident in your celestial chi now, are you? Yuan laughed maniacally as he shot toward the whale that loomed above like a mountain. The sight of Yuan wielding celestial chi was so utterly shocking that even those locked in fierce combat froze in place, their eyes fixed on him in disbelief, needing a moment to confirm that what they were witnessing wasn't some illusion. He's wielding celestial chi with the body of a mortal? Jiao Binglan and the others from the Azure Dragon clan were utterly speechless. Stay away from me, you monster. The whale suddenly returned to his human form and began running away in a panic. How dare you run after starting this fight yourself? Get back here, you damn coward. Yuan shouted as he chased after him. If you find any errors, ads pop up, ads redirect, broken links, non-standard content, etc. Chapter 1976, Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Reinforcement. Chapter 1976, Mystic Sea Dragon Clan's Reinforcement. As the God Ascension expert turned to flee, Yuan immediately gave chase. However, being underwater, and with his opponent a native sea beast, Yuan quickly found himself outpaced, the distance between them widening with every passing second. Unable to close the distance, Yuan resorted to mockery, hurling taunts laced with scorn in hopes of provoking his opponent into a reckless, rage-fueled mistake. You dare call yourself a god when you're running away from a mortal like a frightened cat? Your comrades are still fighting for their lives while you abandon the battlefield. Are you not ashamed of yourself? Even if you survive, you'll become an object of derision. Damn, look how fast you're going. I can't wait to tell my friends and the rest of the world about this. The God Ascension expert trembled with a mix of rage and humiliation as Yuan's taunts echoed from behind. He even coughed up a mouthful of blood in an effort to suppress his fury. But in the end, his fear ran deeper than his pride, leaving him powerless to turn back. However, just as Yuan was about to give up the chase, the man abruptly came to a halt. Yuan stopped as well, but instead of excitement, a deep frown formed on his face, sensing that something wasn't right. Sure enough, moments later, Yuan sensed numerous powerful auras rapidly closing in from the distance. Ah! They're finally here. The Mystic Sea Dragon clan's main army has finally arrived. The man laughed out loud after realizing what was going on. Yuan had anticipated the possibility of reinforcements arriving, but when he saw just how many powerhouses were converging upon him, he couldn't help but let out a weary smile. With a single glance, Yuan could tell their reinforcements numbered over 300,000. It was a massive army, far larger than the entire reported population of the Mystic Sea Dragon clan. This could only mean one thing: the Mystic Sea Dragon clan hadn't come alone and had arrived backed by other forces. It didn't take long for the others to notice the Mystic Sea Dragon clan's reinforcements. And when the Azure Dragon clan realized the situation, their expressions turned grim, darkened by a growing sense of dread. Upon seeing their reinforcements arrive, those who had been clinging to life on the battlefield felt a surge of hope, and their morale soared to its peak. The third elder, who had been losing to Jiao Zhenhai, let out a booming laugh. Ah! I hope you didn't think we were all you had to deal with, because the real fun is only just beginning. Jiao Zhenhai clenched his fists. He remained silent, but his eyes were filled with despair. Even if his parents showed up right now, they'd still be completely outnumbered by the reinforcements. At the forefront of the massive army stood several figures exuding overwhelming presence, each one a God Ascension realm cultivator ranging from the 1st to the 4th level, their very aura weighing down the atmosphere like a crushing tide. Leading them was a strikingly beautiful woman with silver horns curling from her head and a tail swaying behind her. Her cultivation dwarfed the rest, standing at the 6th level of God Ascension. Sometime later, the army halted before Yuan and the God Ascension realm cultivator. General Ji, where do you think you're going? The woman suddenly spoke, her voice calm yet oppressive. Why are you heading away from the battlefield? That's... General Ji hesitated, shame flickering in his eyes. He couldn't possibly admit to fleeing from a mere mortal, not in front of so many watchful eyes. Even if he survived today, he would be reduced to nothing but a laughing stock. The woman spoke again, Is something stuck in your throat preventing you from speaking? Or are you just too ashamed to admit that you'd run away from the battlefield? From a mortal, no less. General Ji's entire body trembled the moment he realized the woman had witnessed everything. And my actions are inexcusable, Mystic Empress. He stammered, dropping to his knees. I am willing to accept whatever punishment you see fit. I will deal with you once we return. Until then, stay there and watch how it's supposed to be done. As you wish. The woman then turned her attention to Yuan with an amused smile tugging at her lips. After a moment of silence, she spoke, I have lived a long time, but this is my first time seeing a mortal wield celestial qi. You have my admiration and respect. Thank you. My name is Tsang Xuanji, the head of the Mystic Sea Dragon clan, and I have a proposition for you. Instead of fighting for the Azure Dragon clan, who are destined to be destroyed soon, why don't you join my Mystic Sea Dragon clan? General Ji expressed shock when the Mystic Empress offered Yuan to join their ranks instead of killing him, but he didn't dare utter a sound. If you serve my Mystic Sea Dragon clan well, the Mystic Empress said with a faint, amused smile, I might even consider accepting you into my family as a concubine. Yuan couldn't help but chuckle at her random offer. A concubine, huh? Did you offer the three elders the same thing? He asked. What is that bastard saying? The third elder couldn't believe what he was hearing. The three elders? They're useful but ultimately nothing more than tools. You're different. If you desire, I can even dispose of them for you after you join our side. A Mystic Empress. That wasn't part of our agreement. The third elder blurted out in panic, his face draining of color. The Mystic Empress' expression darkened, her gaze turning icy as it locked onto the third elder. To think you still have the nerve to speak of our agreement, she said coldly, her voice rising with each word. Not only have you failed to obtain the tier of the Azure Heavens, but you've also forced us to abandon a plan that took many millennia to perfect, all because of your incompetence. Trash. With that final word, the Mystic Empress' voice erupted like thunder, unleashing a powerful ripple that swept across the battlefield, shaking the hearts of all who heard it. Chapter 1977, The Mystic Empress Rampage. Chapter 1977, The Mystic Empress Rampage. After hearing the Mystic Empress' words, the third elder fell silent, no longer daring to utter another word. Instead, he glared at Yuan with a hateful gaze. It was all because of that bastard. If he hadn't shown up, we wouldn't be in this situation. The third elder blamed everything on Yuan, who showed up out of the blue and purified their poison. Unfortunately, the only thing he could do was complain about it. After scolding the third elder for his incompetence, the Mystic Empress returned her attention to Yuan and spoke calmly. So, what do you think about my offer? I'm flattered by it, he said. Unfortunately, I cannot join the Mystic Sea Dragon clan. What is the reasoning behind your decision? The Mystic Empress asked with narrowed eyes. First of all, I don't belong to the Azure Dragon clan. What? Then why are you fighting for them? They have something I want, and I am helping them to acquire it. In that case, wouldn't it be better to fight for us? Besides the tier of the Azure Heavens, I can help you get whatever you want after we defeat them. While that does make logical sense, I do not like to take things by force if I don't have to. And while I enjoy fighting, I dislike needless bloodshed. Now allow me to tell you the second reason why I cannot join you. The tier of the Azure Heavens that you're looking for, it no longer exists. What are you talking about? The Mystic Empress instantly frowned. It no longer exists because I took it and already absorbed it, so you wasted your time by coming here, Yuan said. Everyone standing behind the Mystic Empress froze, dumbfounded by Yuan's claim. A heavy silence followed as they exchanged uneasy glances with each other. If what Yuan said was true, they wasted an immense amount of time and resources. The Mystic Empress trembled slightly before speaking in a low voice. Tell me that you're joking. Yuan shrugged and said, We've already tried telling the third elder, but he didn't want to believe us either. I'm sorry, but it's true. He extended his arm and with a flicker of will, conjured a beautiful blue flame upon his palm. This is the heaven-freezing flame that I acquired from consuming the treasure. You wanted it because you knew what it really was, the heaven-chilling ice phoenix's heart, right? When the Mystic Empress saw the flames flickering above Yuan's palms and heard his words, she trembled again and coughed up a mouthful of blood as numerous emotions surged through her being. A Mystic Empress. You? How dare you? The Mystic Empress suddenly let out a thunderous roar as her cultivation erupted uncontrollably, surging outward like a tidal wave. The immense force of her outburst instantly swept through the ranks behind her, sending her own army reeling, even damaging many who were unable to withstand the immense power of her uncontrolled pressure. Do you have any idea what you have done? What I had to sacrifice just to get here? The mystic Empress continued to scream, her voice laced with fury and anguish as her mind began to unravel, her composure quickly rumbling under the weight of rage and frustration. A mystic Empress, please, you must calm yourself. The God Ascension cultivators with her pleaded, their voices tinged with urgency and fear. Calm down? Calm down? However, it only enraged her even further. Yuan swallowed nervously. He knew it would anger her, but he never anticipated such a drastic reaction from the mystic Empress. I am going to kill you. I'll kill you all. Suddenly, the mystic Empress shot toward Yuan with blinding speed, so fast that though his eyes followed her movement, his body couldn't react in time. Her hand clamped around his neck like an iron vice, and in the next instant she dragged him down in a streak of fury, slamming him violently into the ocean floor with a thunderous crash. I'll get the tear of the azure heavens even if I have to forcefully remove it from your body. Even as he was pinned to the ocean floor, Yuan tried to get the mystic Empress off him by striking her with the dragon god's vengeance. However, the difference in their celestial chi was simply too overwhelming for Yuan's attacks to have any effect. It was akin to trying to break down a metal door with a toothpick. Suddenly, two figures shot toward them before working together to remove the mystic Empress from Yuan. Father. Mother. Jiao Zhenhai exclaimed after seeing his parents' arrival. Are you okay? Jiao Longfei asked Yuan. Yes. Do you think you can hold her off for a minute? A minute? I'll be difficult, especially when she's like that, but well try, said Jiao Xuanji. The two of them were both at the 5th level of God Ascension realm, but even if they fought together they wouldn't be able to defeat the mystic Empress. How dare you intervene? I'll swallow all of you. In a flash of divine light, the mystic Empress transformed into her true form, a majestic silver dragon, radiating an overbearing presence that shook the sea itself. Not daring to underestimate her, Jiao Xuanji and Jiao Longfei responded in kind, assuming their dragon forms without hesitation. Moments later, the three titanic beasts collided, and the sheer force of their clash unleashed violent currents in every direction, hurling nearby cultivators like leaves in a storm. While that happened, Yuan ignored everything around him and focused his attention solely on the dragon god's vengeance. Yao, I need your help. You're the only one who can stop her rampaging. He sent his voice into the soul weapon, speaking directly to dragon goddess Yao. However, there was no response. I know you're upset and am sorry, but I could really use your assistance here. Yuan sighed and continued, the 9 dragon symbols. I remembered our promise. Although we couldn't fulfill it last time, let's do it properly this time. I promise. Though dragon goddess Yao didn't speak, the dragon god's vengeance began to tremble in response. Chapter 1978, Absolute Obedience. Chapter 1978, Absolute Obedience, Get out of my way, you trash. Mystic Empress aura exploded further. At this rate, we won't be able to block her for a single minute. Jiao Longfei poured all of his celestial chi forward, but it quickly crumbled when Mystic Empress struck back. Damn. When the hell did she become so powerful? Jiao Xuanji exclaimed as she struggled to keep up. My treasure. My plans. My future. Ah. Mystic Empress Rampage grew so uncontrollably violent that both the Azure Dragon clan and the Mystic Sea Dragon clan were forced to cease fighting and retreat in a panic. Even the stray wisps of celestial chi erupting from her body were potent enough to kill anyone there instantly, leaving no one willing to remain near her wrath. Suddenly, amidst the chaos and carnage, a profound aura descended upon the ocean like a silent decree from the heavens, vast, unfathomable, and absolute. The raging tide stilled, and even Mystic Empress rampaging celestial chi were forced to disperse. What is this pressure? This presence? A cultivation god. Jiao Longfei gasped, his voice trembling with disbelief as he instinctively turned toward the source of the overwhelming aura, eyes wide with awe and fear. Everyone present turned to face the source of the aura, including the Mystic Empress. Though still burning with rage, she found herself unable to express it, as if her very body and instincts had seized control, suppressing her fury out of sheer, primal desperation in the presence of something far beyond her comprehension. Their gazes landed on Yuan, who was standing on the ocean floor with the dragon god's vengeance in his grasp. No, they were all staring at the dragon god's vengeance. In the very next moment, a faint light emerged from within dragon god's vengeance, swiftly expanding until it took the shape of a human figure, divine and ethereal, with a beauty so transcendent it instinctively commanded reverence from all who beheld it. Yet, despite her breathtaking beauty, it was her unfathomable presence that held everyone's attention. Merely standing in her presence compelled all those around her to instinctively seal their cultivation and loosen their stance, as though their bodies moved on their own to show submission and that they meant no harm. Mystic Empress was no exception. Though her heart seethed with reluctance and resistance, her body betrayed her will. Unable to defy the overwhelming pressure of the presence before her, she returned to her human form and lowered herself in submission to Dragon Goddess Yeo. After making an appearance, Dragon Goddess Yeo ignored everyone and calmly approached Mystic Empress. "Hey," she called out in a nonchalant tone. "Why yes." Mystic Empress trembled uncontrollably as she responded in a cracked, uneven voice strained by overwhelming fear, feeling like she had suddenly turned into a mortal. "I'm in a good mood right now, so I'll spare you for your insolence. However, my patience is limited, so I'll give you and your minions 10 seconds to disappear from my sight. And don't even think about coming back in the future. Thank you for your mercy." Without daring to utter a word in defiance, Mystic Empress turned and swiftly swam away like her life depended on it, her once dominant aura now subdued and broken. As for the rest of the Mystic Sea Dragon clan, they didn't need any instructions to fall back. The Azure Dragon clan stood in stunned silence, watching their enemies retreat in haste. The scene felt surreal, like a dream too impossible to be real, leaving them to question whether their eyes were deceiving them. Dragon Goddess Yeo returned to Yuan's side and asked, "Are you satisfied? Or did you want me to kill everyone?" Yuan shook his head and said, "No, this is fine." He turned to look at Jiao Jinhai and continued, "Though they may have plotted against the Azure Dragon clan for the tier of the Azure Heavens, this is just the nature of the cultivation world. They were undoubtedly forceful, but so was your aggression toward the Holy Dragon clan regardless of your reasons. That said, it's not like they received no punishment. Because of their greed, they lost many powerful cultivators and immortals, greatly reducing their influence, and it's not likely they will return since you no longer have what they want." Yuan agreed to protect the Azure Dragon clan from destruction, which had achieved. As for killing everyone from the Mystic Sea Dragon clan, he never considered doing such a thing. If he, a mere human, were to erase one of the 10 royal dragon bloodlines from existence, it would undoubtedly draw even greater trouble upon him in the future than just offending the Mystic Sea Dragon clan. After a moment of silence, Jiao Jinhai let out a heavy sigh and said, "No, I completely understand. In the end, you're just an outsider who was dragged into our conflict. We have no right to expect you to shoulder such a tremendous burden. You helped us chase away the Mystic Sea Dragon clan just like you promised, and that's more than enough. Even if they return in the future, it's a problem we must deal with ourselves." Jiao Jinhai turned to look at the third elder, who had tried to escape with the others but was forced to stay behind, and continued, "As for you, you'll pay for betraying our family for the rest of your miserable life. Please? I was wrong. Have mercy." Yuan stopped paying attention to them and looked at Dragon Goddess Yeo. "I'd love to fulfill that promise right now, but with your condition like that." Dragon Goddess Yeo interrupted, "I know, you don't have to say anything. Until I recover my body, we'll put that promise on hold. However, this doesn't mean you can dilly-dally around it." Yuan nodded and said, "I'll restore your body as soon as possible." Dragon Goddess Yeo returned to the Dragon God's vengeance while the rest of the Azure Dragon clan began tending to the aftermath. Chapter 1979, Mystic Empress Obsession. Chapter 1979, Mystic Empress Obsession. While the Azure Dragon clan worked hard to rebuild their destroyed underwater city, much of which was left in ruins by the invasion, Yuan focused on cleansing the lingering poison from the clan's remaining children. Meanwhile, the Mystic Sea Dragon clan did not stop moving at their peak speed until they escaped the water and returned to the surface. Once outside the water, Mystic Empress halted her movements and stared at the empty space before her in silence. The army behind didn't dare to disturb her and patiently waited for her to snap out of it. After a few days of complete stillness, Mystic Empress finally moved again. She took a deep breath before releasing a profound sigh. The cultivation world is quite brutal. As the leader of one of the 10 dragon clans bearing a royal bloodline, the mystic Empress had always believed herself to stand at the very pinnacle of the world. Never had she imagined a day would come when she'd be forced to bow her head and retreat so helplessly. Even now, she would tremble when recalling the presence she felt from Dragon Goddess Yeo. Just who was that woman? I have never felt such fear before, not even when I stood before the Great One. With her vast influence, the mystic Empress had crossed paths with most, if not all, of the most powerful beings in the 9 heavens. Yet, not a single one had ever made her feel as utterly powerless as Dragon Goddess Yeo did, and she had done so effortlessly, merely by releasing a sliver of her aura. There's no way such a powerful entity isn't known across the 9 heavens. Somebody must know something about her. Mystic Empress, what should we do now? Someone eventually asked, pulling her out of her thoughts. The Mystic Empress turned to look at them and said, "The tier of the Azure heavens is no more, so the rest of our plan no longer matters. It's unfortunate, but this is the end of our cooperation. If you want to blame the Mystic Sea Dragon clan me for our incompetence, you're free to do so, but I will not tolerate anyone thinking of coming after my family for this incident. We won't blame you, Mystic Empress. That entity's appearance was completely out of our control. Hell, even if we knew about her existence beforehand, we still wouldn't be able to do anything about it." Some time later, the Mystic Sea Dragon clan and the others went their own way. Time flowed like a fleeting stream, and in the blink of an eye, a year had passed since the failed invasion of the Mystic Sea Dragon clan. While everyone tried to move on and forget the incident, one individual had been living a waking nightmare ever since. No matter how desperately she tried to bury the memory, the Mystic Empress could not escape the looming shadow of Dragon Goddess Yeo. The goddess' presence from that day clung to her mind like a curse, and with each passing day, the weight of that humiliation gnawed at her sanity, slowly driving her toward madness. Boom! A thunderous explosion echoed from the Mystic Empress quarters, followed by a tremor that rippled through the surrounding area. Yet, none of those nearby so much as flinched, as such disturbances had become routine ever since her return. The Mystic Sea Dragon clan tried seeking doctors to help her, but since this was a mental battle, there was nothing the doctors could do but suggest pills that strengthen the mind. I can't believe a 6th-level god ascension powerhouse like the Mystic Empress still has to deal with heart demons. Heart demons are cruel and merciless. They can bring down even a cultivation god if it gets bad enough. What should we do? We cannot let her get to such a point. No matter how many pills we feed her, her condition hasn't improved. If anything, it has only gotten worse. They'll contact the other clans to see if they have any ideas. Time continued to pass. Half a year later, several individuals from the other 10 royal dragon clans arrived at the Mystic Sea Dragon clan after hearing about the Mystic Empress' unique situation. "How is the Mystic Empress?" asked a handsome man who had the cultivation at the 7th level of God Ascension. The members of the Mystic Sea Dragon clan explained the situation and their incident with the Azure Dragon clan. The Mystic Empress with a heart demon? This news left them stunned, as they were all aware of how strong she was mentally. When they went to speak with the Mystic Empress, they could hear her yelling inside her room from the halls. "Who is she? I need to know." The guests exchanged glances with each other. Someone from the Mystic Sea Dragon clan explained, "Her fear has turned into some sort of obsession with that entity." Some time later they knocked on the door. "Mystic Empress, can we speak to you for a second?" Bang! The doors burst open with a deafening crash, and the Mystic Empress emerged. Her once elegant appearance now disheveled, her eyes wild and unfocused, resembling more a madwoman than the regal figure she once was. Before any of the guests could open their mouths, the Mystic Empress suddenly grabbed one of their collars and shouted, "Do you know her? Do you know who she is?" "A Mystic Empress. Snap out of it." "It's fine," said the handsome man she grabbed. "That woman. You want to know her identity, right? Well, I think I have an idea." "Who? Who is she?" "This is merely a guess," he said slowly, his tone laced with reverence and awe, "but judging by the details of her appearance, I believe she was none other than Dragon Goddess Yeo, one of the 3 dragons of origin." "What? Dragon Goddess Yeo? But I thought she died long ago." The others expressed shock after hearing this. He shook his head and said, "Her death was never confirmed. She had only gone missing." "Dragon Goddess Yeo?" Mystic Empress mumbled with a dazed look on her face. Chapter 1980, 2 years later? Chapter 1980. 2 years later, the mystic Empress became silent after learning of the identity of the entity who humiliated her. Everything finally made sense to her. If it was one of the dragons of origin, it was only natural that she was hopeless before such an entity. If Dragon Goddess Yeo has truly returned, this is huge news, said one of the guests. The others nodded in agreement. Who knows how everyone will react, especially the Great One. The Great One will probably be shaking in excitement once he hears of her return. He's always fancied Dragon Goddess Yeo but never had any success because of the Immortal Monarch. Now with the Immortal Monarch gone, he'll definitely try again. The 9 heavens will probably get rowdy for some time. Mystic Empress, are you okay? The handsome man asked her a moment later. Yes. Thank you for telling me her identity, or I would have been consumed by it, she said. Please, you don't need to thank me. It's not guaranteed that she's really Dragon Goddess Yeo either. No, there's no doubt that she's definitely Dragon Goddess Yeo, she said firmly. Aside from the Great One, I've never experienced such instinctive fear, not even close. If the legends are true, that Dragon Goddess Yeo is stronger than even the Great One, then it would make sense. She turned to look at the others and said, I need to rest. Sorry for worrying you guys, even making you waste your time by coming here. Since we got to see your face, it wasn't a waste, laughed the handsome man. The mystic Empress smiled and said, once I recover, I'll invite you guys again. Her guests left shortly after, and the mystic Empress entered seclusion. As time passed, rumors of Dragon Goddess Yeo's return began making their way across the 9 heavens. However, this rumor was so far-fetched that almost nobody believed it. After all, Dragon Goddess Yeo has been missing since the Immortal Monarch's era, which ended hundreds of millions of years ago. Eventually, this rumor reached a certain pair of ears. What did you just say? I demand you repeat that. The individual's voice trembled with disbelief, and his sharp golden eyes flickered with a barely contained excitement. There's been a rumor going around claiming that Dragon Goddess Yeo has returned. The man suddenly extended his arm to grasp the messenger around the neck and threatened, if you dare mess with me, I'll shatter your soul. It's true. I wouldn't dare to lie to you, Great One. Tell me everything you know. The Great One roared, his body trembling in excitement. Meanwhile, 2 years had quietly passed since Xuan took residence within the Azure Dragon clan's territory, dedicating himself to purging the remnants of the poison from their bloodline. I'm done, Xuan said as he lowered his arms. Thank you. Jiao Binglan, who was the last to be treated, quietly thanked him. Xuan met with Jiao Zhenhai and the others shortly afterward. I have fulfilled our agreement. I don't even know how to thank you. Jiao Zhenhai sighed. No need. Xuan shook his head before continuing, now then it's your turn. Of course. Jiao Zhenhai retrieved a silver key from his spatial ring and offered it to Xuan. This is the key we received from the Holy Dragon clan. Xuan accepted the key and tossed it into his spatial ring. Then I'll take my leave now. Are you sure you don't want to stay here a little longer? Jiao Binglan asked him. You should at least rest before you go. Jiao Binglan's attitude toward Xuan had undergone a profound transformation over the past 2 years. Once, she had wished for nothing more than his departure, but now, the mere thought of him leaving was unbearable, stirring a quiet ache that was hard to ignore. Unfortunately, she knew they were not fated to be together. Sorry, but I need to return to the Holy Dragon clan as soon as possible. Then at least let me escort you back, she said. If that's what you want. Sometime later, after bidding farewell to Jiao Zhenhai and the rest of the Azure Dragon clan, Xuan began his journey back to the Holy Dragon clan escorted by Jiao Binglan and Jiao Xianbing. As they made their way back, they passed through the underwater city. 2 years ago, it had lain in ruins, destroyed by the invasion. Yet, in just 2 short years, not only had the Azure Dragon clan rebuilt it, they had refined and improved it, crafting a city even grander than before. Xuan gazed at the underwater city and smiled inwardly. Although this journey took over 2 years, ID gained a lot. Not only did he acquire the heaven-chilling Ice Phoenix's heart, which helped him complete his physique and obtain new abilities, but had even acquired 6 powerful treasures from the Azure Dragon clan. A month later, Xuan returned to the Dragon Spiral Mountain. Do you think we'll see each other again? Jiao Binglan asked him as they arrived at their destination. I'm sure we'll cross paths again in the future, he said. She silently nodded. Welcome back, Senior Envoy. The Holy Dragon Emperor greeted him at the entrance a moment later. I'm back. Jiao Binglan and Jiao Xianbing returned to the Azure Dragon clan after confirming that Xuan had safely entered the Dragon Spiral Mountain. I'm sorry. The Dragon Emperor suddenly apologized. What for? For not being there with you when the Mystic Sea Dragon clan invaded, he sighed. The Azure Dragon clan had notified the Holy Dragon clan of the incident after the invasion had ended, so they were aware of the situation. Yuan smiled and said, "Look at me. Do I look dead to you?" "No." "Then there's nothing else to talk about, especially when it happened 2 years ago." "I understand." The Dragon Emperor nodded and changed the topic. Sometime later, the Dragon Emperor brought Yuan to the training grounds to meet with Meixiu. Chapter 1981, Activating Dragon Spiral Mountain's Teleportation Device. Chapter 1981, Activating Dragon Spiral Mountain's Teleportation Device. When Yuan arrived at the training ground, Meixiu was engaged in a fierce spar with one of the young dragons. "What happened to her?" "She's improved a lot since I last saw her. Even her cultivation has soared," Yuan remarked as they watched from a distance. Meixiu's cultivation had somehow soared to the peak of Divine Ancestor in 2 short years, and her aura had grown so exponentially that Yuan almost didn't recognize her at first. "She's trained with our most experienced instructors nearly every single day for the last 2 years. It was already apparent from the very beginning that she had tremendous potential and talent, but we've underestimated how much talent was dwelling within her. After training for a year, her training progress suddenly skyrocketed toward the heavens, as if something within her bloodline awakened," said the Dragon Emperor. "Honestly, I was quite surprised when it happened," he added. "Her bloodline is more powerful than I'd initially anticipated. I'm really intrigued by its origins." "She's closely related to the Dragon Ancestor," Yuan said. "Dragon Ancestor. I wonder where he is right now." Eventually, Meixiu defeated her opponent. "Damn it. I lost again." The young dragon complained out loud. "It was a good fight." Meixiu extended her arm toward her opponent. The young dragon grabbed it and spoke with a defeated smile. "You're a monster, senior sister." "You only say that because you've never seen a real monster before," Meixiu chuckled. It was at this moment that Meixiu noticed Yuan. "Speaking of the devil?" She leaped from the stage and landed before Yuan. "I didn't realize you'd be back today." "Welcome back, Yuan." "I'm back," he smiled. "I've been so focused on training that it doesn't even feel that long since you left," she said. "I can tell. You've worked hard." "I know you just came back, but how about a spar?" "Why not? I might as well stretch my body before I activate the teleportation device." Yuan jumped onto the stage with Meixiu, and the two of them began sparring immediately. However, neither was going all out in the beginning, and they chatted as they fought. "I heard you had to protect the Azure Dragon clan from an invasion. How was it?" "It was a good experience since I got to fight with Immortals and even a few God Ascension experts." "Him? Wait. You're already at the peak of Immortal Ascension." "I was going to brag about my cultivation progress too," Meixiu exclaimed after noticing his cultivation. Though she was happy for him, Meixiu couldn't help but feel a little dejected since she thought she'd closed the distance between them, even if it was just slightly. However, she quickly shook off those negative thoughts and declared, "I'm going to train even harder." "That's the spirit." Yuan laughed. Their spar quickly increased in intensity, with both of them using Dragon Awakening at the end. The spar lasted for 30 minutes until Meixiu ran out of energy and forfeited. "I've defeated you before and I won't stop training until I can do it again," she said afterward. "I like your enthusiasm. Here, let me give you a little push." Yuan suddenly retrieved a spatial ring and offered it to her. "What's this?" Meixiu asked as she accepted it. "A little something I acquired from the Azure Dragon clan. Take a look inside." When Meixiu peeked inside the spatial ring, she nearly dropped it from shock. "Hey, are you sure I can have this?" she stuttered. "Of course. I got it specifically for you." "Thank you." Meixiu was at a loss for words. There were several Empyrean-grade treasures inside the spatial ring. When Meixiu looked inside the spatial ring again, she realized there was actually a celestial-grade treasure in there. "You didn't rob the Azure Dragon clan, did you?" she asked in a joking tone. Yuan chuckled and said, "It could be considered robbery." In his eyes, he had obtained these treasures in exchange for merely 2 drops of his blood, making it feel less like a fair trade and more like outright robbery. Moreover, although these treasures were powerful, they were meant for dragons. Though Yuan could wield them since he had the body of a dragon, these treasures would not replace his current treasures. "I'm going to activate the teleportation device now. You're going to return to your original world, right? Do you think I can come with you to see it?" Meixiu asked. Yuan pondered for a moment before saying, "You can visit, but since we don't know how things will end up, let's wait until after I regain my body." Okay. With the silver key in his possession, Yuan traveled to the peak of the teleportation device at the top of the Dragon Spiral Mountain. Meanwhile, Meixiu, the Dragon Emperor, as well as several high-ranking members of the Holy Dragon clan, followed as spectators. Sometime later, Yuan stood before the stone tablet with the keyhole. Taking a deep breath, Yuan firmly pressed the silver key into the keyhole. In an instant, the ancient symbols etched across the platform before him ignited with an ethereal glow, pulsing with a mysterious energy that seemed to awaken the very air around him. "Won't this require a lot of spiritual energy to activate?" Yuan asked. The Dragon Emperor then spoke. "Yes, but this device automatically collects spiritual energy, and since it hasn't been used since the Immortal Monarch's era, it should have gathered enough spiritual energy for a few uses." Moments later, a brilliant pillar of light erupted from the platform, shooting skyward with blinding intensity before expanding outward, tearing open the fabric of space and forming a massive, swirling portal suspended in the air. At the same time on Earth, the Lord, who had been cultivating in silence, suddenly opened his eyes and rose to his feet, his gaze lifting sharply toward the sky, as if sensing a distant ripple that transcended worlds. "He did it. He's finally activated the teleportation device from the other side," he exclaimed in excitement. Chapter 1982, The Celestial Emperor's Interference. Chapter 1982, The Celestial Emperor's Interference. Though it was faint, the Lord could sense something trying to connect with the Dragon Spiral Mountain on Earth. He did it. He activated the device from the other side. Not daring to waste another moment, the Lord swiftly turned and rushed into the depths of his cave. There, waiting in solemn silence, stood a circular platform and an ancient stone tablet. Without hesitation, he drew forth a golden key and inserted it into the keyhole, its surface trembling faintly in response. However, unlike the teleportation device in the seventh heaven, the one on Earth barely emitted any glow due to a lack of spiritual energy. Seeing this, the Lord gritted his teeth and roared, "Not enough spiritual energy? In that case, take my cultivation." Without a hint of hesitation, the Lord channeled all of his spiritual energy into the teleportation device, even drawing directly from his dantian to fuel its activation. Empowered by the immense surge of energy, the device responded instantly, its symbols blazing to life as a radiant glow engulfed the chamber, humming with ancient power. The Lord's cultivation plummeted at a rapid rate, but he didn't care and continued as if his life depended on it. Eventually, the teleportation device erupted with a golden pillar of light, its brilliance so intense it pierced through the stone ceiling of the cave and shot into the heavens, tearing through clouds as if announcing its activation to the entire world. This phenomenon shocked everyone on Earth, with some wondering if it was the beginning of an apocalypse. "Look at the sky. It got split apart. What's happening? Is this the end of the world?" The Lord looked at the sky with a relieved smile. "It's done," he muttered as his body collapsed onto the ground. "Lord." Leah rushed over after seeing this. Meanwhile, at the seventh heaven's Dragon Spiral Mountain. "I'm going to enter the portal now," Yuan said to them. "Before you go into the portal, you know that the other device must also be activated for the connection to work, right?" Dragon Emperor said. "Yes, I am aware. I have someone on the other side. If you say so, good luck." Yuan nodded and flew toward the sky, disappearing into the portal. At the same time, somewhere in the ninth heaven, "Your Majesty," somebody activated the Dragon Spiral Mountain's teleportation device. A man draped in a majestic golden robe stood at the edge of a floating island, upon which a vast and imposing palace loomed behind him. His gaze was fixed downward, piercing through clouds and distance, as if observing the world far below with eyes that saw more than mere mortals ever could. "I am aware. Send the heavens mandate to investigate and shut it down," said the Celestial Emperor. "As your Majesty commands." Dragon Spiral Mountain. Is it just a coincidence? No, there's no such thing as a coincidence when it comes to him, the Celestial Emperor muttered. After stepping into the portal, Yuan was instantly consumed by a rushing torrent of distorted space. He hurtled through the rift at incredible speed, his body suspended in a void where time and direction lost all meaning, and he had no control over his movements. Normally, teleportation occurred in the blink of an eye. However, the distance between the 9 heavens and Earth was so unfathomably vast that even space-bending travel required time to traverse. A few minutes after Yuan vanished into the portal, the skies above Dragon Spiral Mountain trembled, and a second, even larger portal tore open the heavens. From its swirling depths, an overwhelming army descended, immortals and god ascension experts alike, their presence shaking the land with divine pressure. Noticing this, everyone at the Dragon Spiral Mountain halted their movements and looked toward the sky. I am General Wang of Heaven's Mandate. Under His Majesty, the Celestial Emperor's command, we have come here to investigate your reason for activating the Dragon Spiral Mountain's teleportation device. The man leading the army, a 9th-level god ascension powerhouse, demanded an answer. The Holy Dragon Emperor fearlessly approached the army and spoke. Since when did the Celestial Emperor take interest in the affairs of our Royal Dragon clan? Since now. Is that so? In that case, our reason is simple. We activated the teleportation device simply because we can. As far as I'm aware, it's not against the law to do so. It's not, but the Celestial Emperor wants you to shut it down, and his words are the law in the 9 heavens. Perhaps that may be the case for you humans, but we're the Holy Dragon clan. We only follow the command of Dragon Goddess Yeo. The Celestial Emperor should know better than to send a bunch of dogs to bark at us. Leave if you don't want any trouble. Insolence, the general roared, laced with fury and disdain. Even as the Dragon Emperor, you do not have the right to speak so brazenly. Shut down the teleportation device immediately. In the next instant, the Dragon Emperor released his aura without restraint. A wave of immense pressure swept across the land, shaking the air itself, so heavy and oppressive that even the clouds above trembled, as if bowing to his might. You dare encroach on my territory and issue commands as though you rule it? The Dragon Emperor thundered, his voice sending ripples in every direction. The teleportation device will remain active, and that is final. If you wish to shut it down, you must do it yourself. But know this, the moment you set foot on Dragon Spiral Mountain, we will treat it as an act of invasion and we will retaliate. Upon hearing the Holy Dragon Emperor's declaration, the members of the Holy Dragon clan unleashed their auras in unison, each one erupting like a dragon's roar through the heavens, a clear and unified signal to Heaven's Mandate that they were not bluffing. How fucking troublesome. General Wang clenched his fists in frustration. He retrieved a medallion and activated it with his spiritual energy. Your Majesty, we have a situation here. Chapter 1983, Heaven's Will. Chapter 1983, Heaven's Will. Following the Holy Dragon Emperor's firm refusal to comply, General Wang was left with no choice but to contact the Celestial Emperor for further instructions. The situation had grown too delicate, and any misstep could ignite a conflict that would affect not just the Celestial Emperor but the entire 9 heavens. The Heaven's Mandate certainly possessed the manpower to annihilate the Holy Dragon clan if they so wished, but doing so would be no different than striking down a foreign diplomat protected by immunity, and they'd have to answer to the other Royal Dragon clans. While the Celestial Emperor stood as the single most powerful and authoritative figure in the 9 heavens, his reach was not absolute. There existed powers beyond even his command. Most notably the 10 Royal Dragon clans. As dragons, they stood at the very pinnacle of the beast world, alongside the Phoenix bloodline and a handful of other ancient bloodlines. And as royals among dragons, they possessed the ability to command all lesser dragons beneath them. If the 10 Royal Dragon clans were ever to clash against the Celestial Emperor, it wouldn't be a battle against 10 clans alone, it would mean facing the united might of nearly all the dragons in existence, along with countless powerful beings loyal to their cause. Even for the Celestial Emperor, such a conflict would be a calamity of unimaginable scale. Even if the 10 Royal Dragon clans were not allies of each other and often clashed among themselves, they would never allow an outsider, especially a human, to trample upon one of their own bloodlines. In other words, internal strife was acceptable, even natural, but any external aggression was seen as an unforgivable affront to the dragon race itself. What should we do, Your Majesty? The Holy Dragon Emperor refuses to cooperate and declared war if we tried to stop the teleportation device. General Wang explained the situation to the Celestial Emperor. After a brief moment of silence, the Celestial Emperor spoke. Let me speak with the Dragon Emperor. General Wang turned his gaze to the Dragon Emperor and spoke. His Majesty, the Celestial Emperor, wishes to speak with you. He tossed the medallion to the Holy Dragon Emperor. This is the Holy Dragon Emperor speaking. Holy Dragon Emperor, let's not make things difficult. I don't want to, but if you want me to deactivate the teleportation device, I will have to. Is it because you're trying to protect someone? That is none of your business. No, it is my business, the Celestial Emperor said coldly. The one you're so eager to protect. If left unchecked, he will become the very catalyst for the nine heavens' collapse, and as the Celestial Emperor, it is my duty to protect this world. The Holy Dragon Emperor smiled at the Celestial Emperor's words and calmly responded, You have your duties just as I have my own. I'm sorry, Celestial Emperor, but you will not change my mind. After a moment of silence, the Celestial Emperor released a faint sigh before speaking again. I always thought you were one of the wiser Dragon Emperors, but it appears I have been mistaken this entire time. I really don't want to do this, but you've forced my hands. The other Royal Dragon clans will be upset for a while, but they won't do anything hasty while I have the Royal Phoenix clans on my side. In the next moment, an invisible ripple spread across the skies above Dragon Spiral Mountain, distorting space itself. It exuded a profound and unfathomable pressure, one so deep and divine that it felt as though heaven itself were trying to make an appearance. Then the word execute blazed into existence across the heavens, etched in radiant light, vast and commanding, as if carved directly into the fabric of the sky itself, and it hung there like a divine decree. Seeing this, General Wang smiled and declared loudly, Heaven has spoken. Follow the Celestial Emperor's command and destroy the teleportation device. Execute anyone who dares to try and stop us. He pointed his sword toward the Dragon Spiral Mountain and roared, Execute heaven's will. Rhea. Behind him, the army erupted with a deafening war cry that shook the very heavens. With weapons drawn and killing intent surging, they descended upon Dragon Spiral Mountain like a merciless storm. In response, the Holy Dragon Emperor unleashed a thunderous roar, his voice reverberating through every corner of Dragon Spiral Mountain like a divine command. Teach these intruders the price of defiling our sacred land. Slay all who dare to stain our home with their presence. For Dragon Goddess Yayo. Thousands of dragon roars erupted at once, shaking the heavens and the sea below. In a breathtaking surge, every member of the Holy Dragon clan, young dragons, elders, even the humble servants, took to the skies with unwavering resolve. What should I do? She merely cried out, her voice trembling with panic as the skies erupted into chaos around her. The sudden descent into all-out war left her completely overwhelmed and frozen in place. This is not your fight. Find a safe place to hide until Yuan returns. The Holy Dragon Emperor's voice suddenly resounded in her head through voice transmission. But. She merely hesitated following this instruction. How could she run and hide while everyone else fought? Moreover, they were fighting for Yuan. No. There's no way I can cower in a corner while everyone else fights for him. She merely wore all of the treasures Yuan had recently given her and joined the battle shortly later. As for the Dragon Emperor, he also entered the battle after sending his message to Shi Meili, clashing with General Wang. Although the Holy Dragon clan vastly outnumbered the soldiers of Heaven's Mandate, sheer numbers meant little in the face of overwhelming cultivation. Every member of Heaven's Mandate was at least a bronze immortal, and with that power they effortlessly suppressed the Holy Dragon clan, pushing them back with ease despite being outnumbered. Yet even while being overwhelmed, the Holy Dragon clan showed no signs of yielding and continued their relentless retaliation until their last breath. Chapter 1984. Defend the Dragon Spiral Mountain. Chapter 1984. Defend the Dragon Spiral Mountain. How long have I been in here? Yuan mumbled to himself as his body continued to travel through the space rift, feeling like it'd been ages since he entered the portal. However, in reality, it'd only been a few minutes since he entered. Wait a second, this might be an opportunity to train my power of the void. Realizing this, Yuan stopped thinking about the passage of time and focused solely on the void around him. With nothing to do but train his power of the void, Yuan focused entirely on it, eventually forgetting that he was in a space rift and traveling back to Earth. Only an hour had passed since Heaven's Mandate began their invasion, yet more than half of the Holy Dragon clan had already fallen. The majority were young dragons and servants, those without the cultivation to survive such a brutal onslaught. Look around you. This is the result of your foolish defiance, Holy Dragon Emperor. General Wang exclaimed with a vicious smile on his face. Did you really think the Holy Dragon clan could stop Heaven's Mandate, the strongest army in the 9 heavens? Of course not. the Dragon Emperor calmly replied. Then you must believed your royal bloodline would make the Celestial Emperor hesitate. Unfortunately for you, that didn't work out either. You won't understand it even if I were to break it down for you. I don't need to understand it, nor do I want to. The clash between the Dragon Emperor and General Wang, two peak god ascension powerhouses, was so catastrophic that even the ripples from their blows carried enough force to instantly obliterate an immortal upon contact. To prevent their battle from decimating allies and enemies alike, they erected a barrier of celestial chi around themselves. As for Meixiu, she had managed to survive, though just barely, thanks to the protective treasures Xuan had given her. But mere survival was all she could manage. Against immortals, her attacks were like droplets against stone, ineffective and easily brushed aside. Damn it all, they're too powerful. She muttered through clenched teeth, frustration burning in her chest like fire. Her hands trembled, not from fear, but from the unbearable weight of her own powerlessness. If only I were a little stronger. Meixiu cried out inwardly, frustration and helplessness twisting in her chest. But before the thought could fade, a wave of killing intent crashed over her like a cold tide. Die. An immortal soldier charged straight at her, blade gleaming with killing intent. Meixiu turned weakly toward the threat, but her body refused to move, too drained and battered. She couldn't even lift a finger to defend herself, much less avoid it. Is this the end for me? I'm sorry, Xuan, but this will be the end of my journey with you. Was fun. Meixiu closed her eyes, having fully accepted her fate. However, moments later, the death she anticipated did not arrive, prompting her to open her eyes again. You are. Just as the fatal blow was about to land, two figures appeared before Meixiu like flashes of divine light. One stood firmly in front of her, effortlessly blocking the immortal's attack, while the other moved like a shadow, reappearing behind the soldier and striking him down in a single, precise motion. These two were none other than Yin and Yang, elite members of the evil god's shadow army. Sorry it took so long. We had to alert the others. Everything will be okay now. Reinforcements have arrived, said Yang. In the very next moment, countless rifts tore open across the sky above Dragon Spiral Mountain, and from within them emerged several hundred figures, each cloaked in deep black robes that obscured their features. However, their aura was unmistakable and ominous, and their sudden appearance made the heavens' mandate halt their advancement. The Shadow Army. The evil god's shadow army has made an appearance. Someone suddenly shouted. What? General Wang exclaimed. He halted his fight with the Dragon Emperor to confirm it for himself. Evil god's shadow army? The Holy Dragon Emperor frowned, unaware whether this new force was friend or foe. Suddenly, a cold voice thundered across the battlefield. Shadow Army, slaughter Heaven's mandate and protect the Dragon Spiral Mountain. Following the command, the members of the evil god's shadow army descended upon the soldiers of Heaven's mandate, instantly turning the tide against them. Seeing this, General Wang retrieved another medallion and hastily activated it. Why, Your Majesty? We have an emergency. The evil god's shadow army has shown up to defend the Dragon Spiral Mountain. The Celestial Emperor, who had just received this news, sighed. As I figured, this was no coincidence. Upon confirming Yuan's involvement, the Celestial Emperor cast aside what little hesitation remained. With a swift motion, he retrieved a golden medallion etched with the words Heaven's Will. Raising it high, his voice boomed with divine authority. The evil god's shadow army has revealed itself. Heaven's mandate, 3rd Squad, assist the 7th Squad immediately. A few minutes after the Celestial Emperor's command, the skies above Dragon Spiral Mountain split once more. More portals tore through the heavens, and from them descended the 3rd Squad of Heaven's Mandate. Each soldier a golden immortal at minimum, their auras blazing like falling stars as they rushed to reinforce the embattled 7th Squad. Meanwhile, Yuan's eyes suddenly snapped open. In the vast expanse of the void ahead, a flicker of white light shimmered into view. Within moments, it expanded rapidly, growing brighter and closer as his body was irresistibly drawn toward it. A few moments later, Yuan's body was completely engulfed by the radiant light, his vision drowned in pure whiteness. But then, as the brilliance faded, he found himself suspended beneath a vast blue sky, surrounded by drifting clouds, and the silence of the void was gone, replaced by the gentle breath of the wind and the soft glow of sunlight. With a smile on his face, Yuan announced out loud, "I'm back." Chapter 1985, Returning to Earth? Chapter 1985, Returning to Earth. When Yuan emerged from the space rift, for a brief moment, he thought the teleportation had failed, that he was still in the seventh heaven. The spiritual energy in the air was simply too dense, too rich, to belong to Earth. But he quickly realized that it was because the spiritual energy had flowed in from the seventh heaven. The moment the teleportation device connected the realms, the boundless spiritual energy from the seventh heaven flowed into Earth. Even though it was only a fraction for a small world like Earth, even the tiniest trickle of spiritual energy from the seventh heaven was enough to blanket the entire planet, saturating every corner with spiritual energy it hadn't experienced since the Immortal Monarch's era. The cultivators on Earth immediately sensed the shift. The moment the spiritual energy thickened around them, many dropped whatever they were doing and entered seclusion on the spot. Fearing it might vanish as suddenly as it appeared, they rushed to absorb as much of it as possible, eager to seize the rare opportunity to advance in cultivation while the heavens allowed it. Since the rift opened up above the Dragon Spiral Mountain, it didn't take long before Yuan noticed it and descended upon it. When Yuan descended onto the peak of Dragon Spiral Mountain, his gaze was immediately drawn to two distant figures. It was the Lord and Leah. But something was wrong. The Lord lay motionless on the ground, seemingly unconscious, his aura faint and unstable. Beside him, Leah was transferring her spiritual energy into him. Seeing this, Yuan rushed over and asked, "What happened?" "He sacrificed his cultivation to activate the teleportation device," she revealed in a grim tone. "What? Let me help." Upon hearing that the Lord had sacrificed his cultivation, Yuan immediately moved to help. However, he didn't rush to pour spiritual energy into the Lord. With his cultivation reduced to the second level of Spirit Apprentice, the Lord could only absorb what his current realm could withstand. Anything beyond that would do more harm than good. Instead, Yuan retrieved some of his blood and fed it to the Lord. Almost instantly, the Lord's complexion improved significantly. Color returned to his face as the chaotic flow of his body began to stabilize. His breathing, once shallow and erratic, grew steady and calm, as if a heavy weight had been lifted from his chest. Seeing that the Lord's condition had stabilized, Leah slowly turned her gaze toward Yuan. The moment her eyes met his, they widened in astonishment. He looked completely different, taller, sharper, more refined. But it wasn't just his appearance. His aura, it was vast, boundless, and utterly unfathomable to her. It was as if she were staring at a stranger wearing the face of someone she once knew, someone who had soared far beyond her reach. "Are you really Yuan?" she couldn't help but mutter. "I know it's been a few years since we last saw each other, but I can't have changed that much, right? Your face hasn't changed much. I was talking about everything else. Your scent, aura, everything." Yuan smiled and said, "Where are the others?" "Probably still training in the 9 heavens. They rarely return to Earth these days," she said. "Then I'll leave for now. They'll come back once I get back into my real body." Then he soared through the sky and returned straight to his home, landing softly on the familiar balcony just moments later. Stepping inside, a wave of warmth washed over him. There, in the quiet of the room, lay his physical body resting peacefully beside Chu Liuxiang. But to his surprise, Meixiu was there as well, resting on the same bed, her expression gentle and serene. "So, how does this work? Do I jump inside my own body or something?" Yuan questioned out loud. Yuning then said, "Since your soul was separated using the soul transference array, we'll likely need to undo the formation first. Do you think you can do it?" "I can try, but I'll need some time to analyze the formation first." "Go ahead. I'll even lend you my body," said Yuan. The next moment, Yuning took over Yuan's soul avatar and began examining Yuan's real body. "This formation is much more complicated than I'd anticipated," she muttered after a single glance at the formation. Half an hour later, Yuning spoke. "I think it's doable. Fortunately, the soul transference array wasn't created to be unbreakable and is actually quite fragile. Once I remove the formation from your real body, your soul will likely automatically return to its body. It'll begin on your command." "I'm ready. You can begin whenever you're ready." "Okay, then I will begin now." Yuning, using Yuan's avatar, began making array symbols in the air. About 10 minutes later, she combined the array symbols into a single array and sent it directly inside Yuan's body. "It's broken," she said. The very next moment, Yuan's vision went completely blank. Yet, despite the absence of sight, he could still feel. A strange, irresistible force had gripped him, pulling at his very essence. He felt his body being pulled, as though something unseen was trying to consume his very existence. This sensation lasted for a few seconds before everything went still. Eventually, Yuan opened his eyes and could see the ceiling right above him. He sat up on the bed and looked down at his body. It worked. Head finally returned to his true body. How do you feel? Yining asked. Weak, he replied. After examining his body more closely, he realized that his cultivation was no longer at the peak of immortal ascension but his true Bodhis cultivation, which was still in the spirit realm. However, he could sense his cultivation slowly improving. He'll probably need some time before my body and soul are fully integrated again. That's normal, since your soul has been split into two parts for many years. Suddenly, Celestial Emperor's curse has activated. When the Celestial Emperor's curse activated, an excruciating pain tore through Yuan, not in flesh or bone but from the depths of his soul. It was a searing agony unlike anything he had ever known, as if his very existence was being unraveled thread by thread. Your soul has been damaged. Yuan realized what was happening even without looking at the notification. The Celestial Emperor's curse was trying to destroy his soul. Chapter 1986, Unbreakable Will. Chapter 1986, Unbreakable Will. Young Master. Are you okay? Yu Ning and the others exclaimed, their voices filled with horror. The Celestial Emperor's curse is trying to destroy my soul. What? Then you should hurry up and destroy the curse using the sacred chalice of purification. Feng Yuxiang urged. However, Yuan shocked them by shaking his head and saying, no, this is exactly what I have been waiting for. That doesn't make any sense. But Yuan didn't respond and fell silent after entering cultivation. This left the others flabbergasted. None of them could understand why Yuan was waiting for his soul to be attacked. If Yuan's soul hadn't been fortified through his many reincarnations, the Celestial Emperor's curse would have instantly shattered his soul, killing him completely. However, because his soul has existed since the primordial era and has been tempered for billions of years, not even the Celestial Emperor could easily destroy it. Moreover, Yuan has been training Heaven's indomitable soul for years now, which has strengthened his soul even more. Yet, despite this, the Celestial Emperor's curse was relentless and extremely powerful, one of the most powerful curses in the 9 heavens. The curse continued to gnaw at Yuan's soul, causing him incredible pain, and no matter how powerful his soul was, it wasn't indestructible, especially since he hadn't even reached the God Ascension realm. Slow but surely, the Celestial Emperor's curse was destroying his soul. Despite his soul on the verge of being destroyed, Yuan didn't do anything to stop it, allowing it to happen. His puzzling actions greatly worried his companions. A destroyed soul wasn't the same as a destroyed body, and his regeneration ability had no effect on his soul, so if it were truly to be destroyed, he'd die for sure. Meanwhile, in the Celestial Emperor's palace, the Celestial Emperor could sense the activation of his curse. So he managed to reunite his soul with his body. However, as long as my curse is on you, you will not live long enough to return to the 9 heavens. Almost half an hour has passed since Yuan began resisting the Celestial Emperor's curse. It's time, he muttered in a low voice. The very next moment, Yuan stopped resisting the curse, allowing it to complete its assault on his soul. His soul, which was already on the verge of destruction, began to crack, causing him to cough up several mouthfuls of blood. Young master, what are you doing? Feng Yuxiang cried out loud. However, Yuan was too focused to even hear her voice. Then, Yuan's body collapsed onto the bed, and his aura completely vanished. Young master. Feng Yuxiang and the other emerged from his dantian. He's dead. Feng Yuxiang couldn't believe it. Lan Yingying clenched her fists, unsure of what to say. Calm down, you dumb pigeon. A calm voice suddenly resounded. This voice? Dragon Goddess Yeo? You should have been with him for long enough to know that he wouldn't do something like this without a reason. That's... Feng Yuxiang fell silent. Dragon Goddess Yeo was right. Yuan wouldn't do something as foolish as killing himself. Just as they began to calm down, Yuan's body suddenly became enveloped by a golden shimmer. It was faint at first, but it eventually became so intense that it illuminated the entire room. A few minutes later, Yuan slowly opened his eyes. Young master. Feng Yuxiang cried tears of happiness after seeing Head returned. He showed them an apologetic smile and said, Sorry for not warning you ahead of time. You really scared me there for a second. What happened anyway? Lan Yingying asked. I'll answer your questions later. Right now, I have to deal with the Celestial Emperor's curse. Though he may have restored his soul, the Celestial Emperor's curse continued to haunt him and attempted to destroy his soul again. Yuan retrieved the sacred chalice of purification and fed his blood to it. Unlike the others, whose curses were almost instantly cleansed by the sacred chalice of purification, the Celestial Emperor's curse clung stubbornly to Yuan's soul. However, no matter how powerful the Celestial Emperor's curse was, it was ultimately eliminated by the chalice. Cough. In the Celestial Emperor's palace, the Celestial Emperor coughed up a mouthful of blood when his curse was destroyed. Your Majesty. The people around him panicked when they saw this. I'm fine. He roared. He looked at his blood on the ground and clenched his fists in frustration. You're even harder to kill than a damn cockroach. Why must you continue your pointless struggle? You will never defeat them. After purifying the Celestial Emperor's curse, the sacred chalice of purification began purifying the other curses that afflicted Yuan. However, these curses were much more powerful than the Celestial Emperor's curse. Yuan wasn't surprised about these curses since he had been warned about them before. In essence, most of them were natural curses that had followed him from his previous lives. Shortly after Yuan purified the Celestial Emperor's curse, the surrounding spiritual energy surged toward him like a flood, consumed by his body at a terrifying rate, even though he wasn't actively cultivating. With the curse lifted, the seal that had silently suppressed his potential was gone. His cultivation speed, once shackled, had returned to its natural state. The Celestial Emperor is definitely aware of the situation. We need to return to the 9 heavens as soon as possible, he said as he jumped off the bed. Before leaving, he looked at Chu Liuxiang and Meixiu and mumbled, "Let's meet again in the 7th heaven." She merely exclaimed. They have decided to stay even if it means they'll die, and I have no authority to stop them. However, you're my liege's comrade. I cannot let you die. Sorry, but I'll take you away even if I have to use force. Before she merely could contest, Dong Yi grabbed her arm and teleported them away from the battlefield, leaving the Holy Dragon clan and Heaven's Mandate alone. Chapter 1988, The Celestial Emperor's Unstoppable Attack. Chapter 1988, The Celestial Emperor's Unstoppable Attack. The moment the Celestial Emperor sensed his curse destroyed by Yuan, a resolute glint flashed in his eyes. Without hesitation, he raised his hand, drawing forth his celestial chi. Your Majesty, what are you doing? You can't use such a powerful technique without any warning. A man bearing a unique white and gold robe hastily approached the Celestial Emperor and exclaimed after seeing this. The results will be catastrophic, and the Celestial Council will be all over this. I am well aware, he calmly responded. However, I cannot let him return to the 9 heavens. Even if I receive backlash for this, I am willing to bear the responsibility. The man fell silent upon hearing the unwavering composure and clear finality in the Celestial Emperor's tone. He was certain that unless someone forcefully stopped him, the Celestial Emperor had no intention of backing out. However, the technique the Celestial Emperor was about to unleash would not just destroy the entire Dragon Spiral Mountain, it would cause irreversible damage in the 7th heaven. Once I reduce Dragon Spiral Mountain to nothingness, his path to the 9 heavens will be severed. And if he is already making his return, then he will be cast adrift in the boundless void of the universe, no different from death itself, the Celestial Emperor mused inwardly. Meanwhile, in the 7th heaven, the Heaven's Mandate began backing away from the Dragon Spiral Mountain when they saw the slit in the sky. The Celestial Emperor is going to personally intervene. Fall back. General Wang shouted before hastily creating a portal for them to escape to. Witnessing this, the Holy Dragon Emperor paid them no further heed and turned back toward Dragon Spiral Mountain, where the lifeless bodies of thousands of his fallen clansmen lay. The members of the Holy Dragon clan who were still alive gathered around him. I never imagined that our Holy Dragon clan would perish in such a situation, sighed the Dragon Emperor. He turned to look at the others and continued, I won't blame you if you wish to leave. There's no way we will abandon you in the Dragon Spiral Mountain. That's right. We have spent our entire lives here, and we will spend our last moments here. The members of the clan voiced their refusal to leave. The Holy Dragon Emperor smiled and said, in that case, we might as well spend our last moments trying to protect our home. He turned his gaze to the colossal sword in the sky, now descended more than halfway through the rift, its presence looming like a divine judgment. That is the Celestial Emperor's divine judgment, right? Despite being in this world for over 1,000,000 years, this is actually my first time seeing it, one of the elders remarked. The ultimate execution technique, powerful enough to kill even a 9th-level God Ascension cultivator with ease. This will sound weird, but it feels like an honor to die to such a magnificent technique. Once the Holy Dragon clan had mentally prepared themselves, they charged toward the sky in preparation to fight against the divine judgment. Meanwhile, countless eyes across the 7th heaven, and even those gazing down from the 8th and 9th heaven, watched the unfolding scene in stunned silence. The earlier battle had already stirred the realms, but none had foreseen that the Celestial Emperor himself would take action. What did the Holy Dragon clan do to incite the Celestial Emperor's wrath? Who were those individuals in black? They appeared out of the blue and nearly defeated the Invincible Heaven's mandate. These people were full of questions and speculations. Meanwhile, the other royal dragon clans had already mobilized, dispatching emissaries to the Celestial Emperor's palace with urgent demands to cease his assault on the Holy Dragon clan. Unsurprisingly, the Celestial Emperor had sealed the doors to his palace and completely ignored their demands. This enraged the royal dragon clans, yet they were powerless to prevent the Celestial Emperor from obliterating Dragon Spiral Mountain. All they could do was bide their time and prepare to seek retribution once the deed was done. At last, the Celestial Emperor completed the technique and, with unwavering authority, swept his arm downward. In that instant, the sword hanging in the heavens surged with power and plunged forth, its descent no longer gradual but swift and absolute. The sheer pressure radiating from the sword was so overwhelming that all cultivators below the God Ascension realm from the Holy Dragon clan plummeted from the sky like helpless flies. Even the Dragon Spiral Mountain began to sink into the waters beneath it, crushed by the weight of its descent alone. This is really too much. The Holy Dragon Emperor muttered as he struggled to stay in the air, much less fight it. Those strong enough to withstand the pressure unleashed their most formidable techniques upon the descending sword, shaking the heavens and earth with their onslaught. Yet their efforts were in vain. The blade remained unscathed, as if they were hurling raw eggs against an immovable mountain. The Holy Dragon Emperor suddenly charged toward it, his form erupting into that of a colossal silver dragon. With a thunderous roar, he lunged at the descending sword and sank his fangs into it, desperate to halt, or at least slow, its relentless fall. The others followed suit, but alas, their efforts were futile against the Celestial Emperor's overwhelming prowess. Just as the sword was about to bring ruin upon Dragon Spiral Mountain, a faint sigh echoed through the heavens, soft yet boundless. Then the space just above the peak of the Dragon Spiral Mountain warped and twisted, and like a ghost drawn from the void, a solitary figure draped in black robes and a face veil appeared out of thin air. This figure exuded an unfathomable presence far beyond the Holy Dragon Emperor, and just their presence alone was enough to slow down the descending sword. This presence, it can't be. Gasps of shock rippled through the spectators as they beheld the sudden arrival of a figure who had reached the pinnacle of cultivation, the appearance of a cultivation god. Chapter 1989, The Appearance of a Cultivation God. Chapter 1989, The Appearance of a Cultivation God. A cultivation god has appeared. What? Impossible. Why would a cultivation god intervene, especially when the Celestial Emperor is involved? Are we sure they are a cultivation god? There are only a handful of them in the entire 9 heavens, and I recognize everyone but this individual. That presence, that aura. There's no doubt about it. This individual is a cultivation god. Are you saying this is not just the appearance of a cultivation god but the appearance of a new one? The spectators' astonishment deepened as realization struck. This was an unfamiliar cultivation god, one whose presence had never graced the public eye. Cultivation gods were figures of renown, their names etched into the annals of history. For such a being to appear unrecognized could mean only two things. They had either remained hidden in the shadows for an unknown amount of time, or they had just recently reached the pinnacle of cultivation. Their appearance may be new, but that unfathomable aura. It's much stronger than that one cultivation god I saw a few years ago, so they must have been a cultivation god for quite some time now. As the spectators racked their brains trying to figure out the cultivation god's identity, the Celestial Emperor wore a deep frown on his face when he realized that someone was trying to stop his divine judgment. In the entire 9 heavens, only cultivation gods could possibly defy him, a fellow cultivation god. Who are you and why are you interfering with my work? The Celestial Emperor spoke, his voice booming through the realms and resounding before the cultivation god. A slight smile tugged at the lips behind the veil, but the cultivation god did not respond to the Celestial Emperor. The cultivation god raised their hand and pointed toward the colossal sword in the sky, revealing a pair of fair, jade-like hands, smooth, unblemished, and adorned with slender fingers. The graceful motion, coupled with the subtle rise of her chest beneath the robes, left little doubt that this mysterious figure was a woman. This new cultivation god is definitely a woman. Looks like we will have more than one female cultivation god now. With this new revelation, the spectators began narrowing down the possible identities of the mysterious cultivation god. Their minds raced through the annals of history, recalling every female cultivator who had ascended to the peak of the god ascension realm within the last few million years. It's hard to tell with her robes, but her figure resembles the fairy sword Empress. No, the fairy sword Empress is a little shorter. Why are we even using appearance details to figure out their identity? If this individual is trying to hide their identity, it's very likely that they're also disguised. She could be a he for all we know. This son of, having his most sensitive weakness poked, the Celestial Emperor instinctively unleashed an even greater surge of power, his fury fueling a force beyond restraint. Is the Celestial Emperor trying to bring ruin to the seventh heaven? The spectators, once watching with idle fascination, now found their amusement replaced by growing unease and fear. Your temper is as feeble as your strength. The cultivation god sneered coldly, flicking her sleeve with effortless disdain. In the very next instant, the colossal sword, its surface already veined with fractures, shattered into countless shards, cascading down upon the sea of dragons like a merciless rain of divine blades. Chapter 1990, Returning to the Nine Heavens? Chapter 1990, Returning to the Nine Heavens. The cultivation god did it. She stopped the Celestial Emperor's attack. A collective gasp swept through the spectators as they drew in a sharp breath, stunned by the unforeseen turn of events. The moment the divine judgment shattered, the Celestial Emperor recoiled as if struck across the face, a searing pain radiating from it. He staggered, blood spilling from his lips, marking the second time in a single day that he had been wounded, a humiliation nearly as deep as the injury itself. However, the Celestial Emperor swiftly regained his footing and began summoning his celestial chi once more, this time with even greater ferocity, his aura surging like a rising tempest that swept throughout the palace. "Your Majesty!" His subordinates cried out in alarm, their voices trembling with fear. Yet not one of them dared to intervene, paralyzed by the consequences of doing so. Once again the skies above Dragon Spiral Mountain quaked, and multiple rifts tore open in unison, splitting the heavens like wounds in the firmament. The cultivation god looked toward the heavens and smiled. "At least your stubbornness rivals your predecessors. The Celestial Emperor is really going to destroy the seventh heaven at this rate." The spectators cried out loud, and some of them began preparing to escape to the other realms. At this moment, several figures appeared around the Celestial Emperor like ghosts, and their voices rang out in unison, sharp and resolute. "Your Majesty, that is enough of your farce. If you refuse to stand down, do not blame us for taking action." Farce. The Celestial Emperor turned to face them, his gaze icy and sharp. "Do you truly believe I am acting out of amusement?" Yet, despite the weight of his glare, the members of the Celestial Council stood firm, their expressions calm and unshaken. "Not only did you unleash overwhelming force without warning, but you even struck at the Holy Dragon Clan. The Royal Dragon Clans have been raising hell at our gates since the moment this began. Are you truly trying to provoke war with one of the most powerful beast bloodlines in all the nine heavens?" they exclaimed. "War?" The Celestial Emperor suddenly burst into laughter, his voice echoing with scorn and fury. "Because of your meddling and that cultivation god's interference, the nine heavens are now on the brink of a war far greater than anything you can possibly imagine." The Celestial Council fell into silence, though none among them seemed particularly alarmed. "If such a war truly comes, we will face it then," one of them said calmly. "For now, our priority lies with the rising tensions with the Royal Dragon Clans. A conference has already been arranged. You must attend and make every effort to ease the storm before it breaks. Rumor has it the Great One just emerged from his seclusion too." Now it was the Celestial Emperor's turn to fall silent. The 10 royal dragon clans were of little concern to him, but the Great One was another matter entirely. That being alone could unleash more devastation than all 10 clans combined. In time, the Celestial Emperor withdrew his aura, and the rifts torn across the skies above Dragon Spiral Mountain slowly began to mend. As the heavens healed, a hush fell over the land, and the turbulent waters gradually returned to calm. However, the Celestial Emperor had not forgotten the Cultivation God. Fixing his gaze upon her that pierced through the realms, he spoke with cold menace, "I do not know who you are, but now that you've revealed yourself and declared your opposition, I will hunt you down like a rabbit in the wild." The Cultivation God offered no reply, only a bold, silent smile that spoke louder than words. Before departing, she cast a final glance toward the closing portal linking the 7th heaven and earth, her gaze unreadable yet profound. Elsewhere in the 7th heaven, Dong Yi stood in silence, his expression grave after witnessing it all. "So, she's finally made her move," he murmured, a flicker of unease in his eyes. "What happened to the Holy Dragon Clan and the Dragon Spiral Mountain?" She merely asked him, her face full of worry. Dong Yi faced her and explained, "They are safe." A cultivation god intervened and stopped the Celestial Emperor. A cultivation god? Why would someone like that defy the Celestial Emperor? Could it be the dragon ancestor? No, this cultivation god is a human. Is that so? Anyway, does this mean you can take me back to the Holy Dragon Clan? Dong Yi nodded and said, "I can take you back, but we should wait a little longer to make sure it has truly ended. Follow new episodes on the What About Yuan? I can sense 2 presences within that portal, so he should be returning soon." 2. She merely raised an eyebrow and wondered who that other individual could be. Sure enough, just a few hours after the battle had ended, Yuan and Leah stepped through the portal, arriving moments before it sealed shut behind them. Leah's eyes widened in awe as she took in her surroundings. The spiritual energy in the air was so dense, so pure, that even her ordinary breaths caused her cultivation to surge. It was unlike anything she had ever encountered. "Welcome to the 9 heavens," Yuan said with a gentle smile, watching her wide-eyed wonder, reminiscent of a child discovering the existence of sweets for the very first time. Noticing his looks, Leah frowned, her tone sharp with indignation. "Don't you dare treat me like some country bumpkin." However, Yuan remained silent, his smile fading as his expression hardened into a deep, solemn frown. "What's wrong?" she asked. "I knew activating the teleportation device would invite trouble," Yuan murmured, his gaze heavy as it fell upon Dragon Spiral Mountain. "But never did I imagine it would escalate to this extent." Though the mountain still stood, its once majestic form bore the scars of devastation, broken, battered, yet barely enduring. "Let's go." Without another word, Yuan descended toward the mountain, his figure cutting silently through the air. Leah followed close behind. Chapter 1992, Departing from the Dragon Spiral Mountain. Chapter 1992, Departing from the Dragon Spiral Mountain. "Please, don't call it a sacrifice. We were merely defending our territory, our home," the Holy Dragon Emperor said solemnly. Yuan's expression turned awkward, guilt flickering in his eyes. "Even so, it's a fact that the Celestial Emperor attacked because I activated the teleportation device. You wouldn't have needed to do such a thing if I didn't show up." The Holy Dragon Emperor shook his head and said, "Your appearance here, as well as the teleportation device's activation, is Dragon Goddess Yu's will, and as the Holy Dragon Clan, it's our duty to fulfill her will regardless of its cost. I allowed anyone who didn't want to die a chance to leave, but nobody took the offer. That's all I have to say on this matter." Yuan fell silent to ponder. Eventually he said, "Can you gather every member of the Holy Dragon Clan for me as soon as possible?" "What are you trying to do?" The Holy Dragon Emperor raised his eyebrows. "You'll find out soon." The Holy Dragon Emperor no longer questioned it and followed his instructions. Shortly after, the remaining members of the Holy Dragon Clan, now reduced to a mere quarter of their former number, gathered before Yuan in solemn silence. "Thank you for gathering here on such short notice and while you're busy. However, I want to do something for you before I leave," said Yuan before retrieving the Dragon God's vengeance. "Yeo, can you say something to them?" If it weren't for their efforts, I wouldn't have been able to return to the 9 heavens peacefully, he said to it. Did he just? Yeah. I heard it. Besides the Holy Dragon Emperor and some of their top members, nobody knew about Xuan being the immortal monarch or that Dragon Goddess Yeo was resting inside the Dragon God's vengeance. Itcha. A soft sigh resounded from the spear before it emitted a profound glow. In the very next moment, Dragon Goddess Yeo appeared before them in her human form. That's. Even without needing her to introduce herself, the members of the Holy Dragon clan immediately knew her identity. Realizing that they were before the one and only Dragon Goddess Yeo, everyone there kowtowed before her. Our God, Dragon Goddess Yeo. They all chanted in unison. Ahem. Dragon Goddess Yeo cleared her throat and began to speak in a somewhat stiff tone. My name is Yeo, and I would like to express my gratitude to the Holy Dragon clan for everything you've done so far, especially for today. Thank you. Though I can only express my gratitude with words right now, once I regain my body, I'll return to give you a proper thank you. For Dragon Goddess Yeo, they cried, voices trembling as tears streamed down their faces. Unless one had devoted their entire life to a single deity, they could never truly comprehend the depth of emotion surging through the Holy Dragon clan as they stood before Dragon Goddess Yeo, their one and only God, the eternal flame of their faith. Dragon Goddess Yeo spoke no further, choosing to keep her presence brief and solemn. With a single nod of approval, she returned to the Dragon God's vengeance. Yet, what she said was already more than enough to ensure the Holy Dragon clan continued to worship her, perhaps even more intensely than before. Though it pains me to leave you like this after all that has happened, remaining here any longer will only risk drawing the Celestial Emperor's attention once more, Xuan said solemnly. So, I'll be taking my leave for now. But if fate permits, I promise I'll return to this place again. Of course, I'll bring Dragon Goddess Yeo with me. Well, await your return no matter how long it takes, Senior Envoy. Xuan smiled, then turned to meet the gaze of the Holy Dragon Emperor, who responded with a silent nod of acknowledgement. Until next time, Xuan said quietly. And with that, he departed from Dragon Spiral Mountain with Leah quietly following behind. Where are you going to go, young master? Feng Yuxiang asked shortly after Xuan left. After a moment of silence, Xuan responded, I'm going to meet the others. Meanwhile, in a grand hall deep within the 9th heaven, the Celestial Emperor and the Celestial Council sat in solemn audience before representatives of 8 of the 10 royal dragon clans. The only ones who weren't present were the Holy Dragon clan and the Azure Dragon clan. Despite the recent incident, the Mystic Sea Dragon clan still made an appearance. You'd best have a damn good explanation, Celestial Emperor, one of the representatives snapped, slamming the table with a force that echoed through the hall. You didn't just trespass into the territory of one of the 10 royal dragon clans, you launched a full assault, one that claimed thousands of lives. Another representative roared, his voice laced with outrage. And not only that, a third representative added sharply, you attempted to annihilate their entire bloodline with divine judgment, a power reserved solely for condemning the most heinous of criminals on death row. The Celestial Emperor sat beneath a storm of accusations and complaints, the voices of the 10 royal dragon clans rising in fury around him, while the Celestial Council observed in heavy silence, neither defending nor intervening. I did what had to be done. I hope for your understanding, the Celestial Emperor finally said, his voice calm and measured, as if the barrage of accusations had done little more than stir the air around him. Don't give us that nonsense. There were countless ways to handle the situation without endangering the Holy Dragon clan, yet you chose the most brutal and direct path. One of them refuted. Perhaps so, he replied calmly, but I was racing against time and did not have the luxury to do things gently. I gave the Holy Dragon clan fair warning, yet they refused to yield. I was left with no other choice. It is regrettable, but I acted as I must to protect the 9 heavens, which is my top priority as the Celestial Emperor. I understand your anger, but if I could rewind time and redo it, I wouldn't have done it any differently. Chapter 1993, 10 Royal Dragon Clans. Chapter 1993, 10 Royal Dragon Clans, The Audacity. One of the representatives shouted, his voice trembling with fury. Do you truly wish to wage war against the 10 royal dragon clans, Celestial Emperor? The Celestial Council, frowning at the escalating tension, finally stepped in. Let us all take a moment to calm ourselves. one of the council members said firmly. If the 10 royal dragon clans were to truly wage war against His Majesty, the Celestial Emperor, it would result in countless deaths and destruction across the 9 heavens. All this, for the Holy Dragon Clan? Another said. Let's be honest. While they may hold a seat among the 10 royal dragon clans, they spend most of their existence secluded within Dragon Spiral Mountain, and they've done little to justify that title. Moreover, their bloodline only rose to the top 3 because of the blessing from Dragon Goddess Yeo, one of the 3 dragons of origin. Your clans, on the other hand, were born with that level of purity. Can their so-called royal bloodline truly be considered authentic? An uneasy silence fell over the royal dragon clans as the Celestial Council cast doubt on the authenticity of the Holy Dragon Clan's bloodline, a heavily debated subject in the past. Since the Holy Dragon Clan had not been born with an imperial-grade bloodline, but rather received it through the blessing of Dragon Goddess Yeo, the royal dragon clans of the time fiercely debated whether they should be granted a seat among their ranks. In the end, they chose to accept the Holy Dragon Clan, not out of consensus but out of caution. To reject the clan would have been tantamount to rejecting Dragon Goddess Yeo herself, a risk none were willing to take. However, since their acceptance into the ranks of the royal dragon clans, the Holy Dragon Clan had contributed little, if anything, to the collective. Reclusive and self-focused, they remained within the confines of Dragon Spiral Mountain, showing little interest in the affairs of the other clans. The Celestial Council smiled inwardly after seeing the royal dragon clan's reaction. And just so you're aware, the Celestial Emperor said suddenly, his tone calm but edged with warning, a war against us would not pit you against my forces alone but against the Royal Phoenix clans as well. The representative's expressions darkened at once, frowns forming as the weight of those words sank in. Are you threatening us with the Royal Phoenix clans? No, the Celestial Emperor replied, his tone as calm as still water. I'm merely informing you so that you may choose wisely. Before the Royal Dragon clans could respond, the Celestial Emperor rose to his feet and spoke coldly. If all you intend to do here is bicker over this matter, then I'll take my leave. I've already given my explanation. Whether you accept it or not is irrelevant to me. I have more important matters to attend to. Celestial Emperor. Angry voices rang out behind him, but the Celestial Emperor paid them no mind, departing without so much as a glance back. His abrupt exit left the Celestial Council in an awkward position. After all, they had aided him by sowing doubt among the royal dragon clans, yet he had discarded that advantage without hesitation. Though the Celestial Emperor had departed, the Celestial Council remained behind to continue the negotiations with the royal dragon clans, stretching on for many hours. After his departure, the Celestial Emperor did not return to the Celestial Palace. Instead, he journeyed to his personal realm. There, a mysterious device displayed a projection of an unknown location within the vast starry void. Within that projection, several indistinct entities could be seen, their forms dormant, yet far from lifeless. Unlike my predecessors, I will not fail you, he murmured, a resolute flame burning in his eyes, unwavering and fierce. Meanwhile, somewhere in the 7th heaven, Kelan gathered Meixiu and the others after learning about what happened at the Dragon Spiral Mountain. Alright, listen up. I don't know what kind of trouble your friend Xuan has gotten himself into, but there was a huge war between Heaven's Mandate and the Holy Dragon Clan that dwells there. Heaven's Mandate? What's that? Wang Ming asked. They're the Celestial Emperor's private army. The Celestial Emperor? That's right. If I recall correctly, Xuan said something about heading to the Dragon Spiral Mountain, right? Though he was not present, there's no way this is a coincidence. Let me log off real quick and see if Xuan has returned to Earth. Chu Liuxiang suddenly said. I'm going too, said Meixiu. They logged off at the same time. After logging off, Meixiu and Chu Liuxiang removed the device and turned to look beside them. However, Yuan's body, which should have been there, was gone. He's gone. Chu Liuxiang exclaimed. I'm going to speak with the Lord. You go back and inform the others, Meixiu said as she swiftly rose from the bed. Without another word, she stepped onto the balcony and took flight, soaring straight toward the mountain's peak. Chu Liuxiang immediately returned to Cultivation Online and explained the situation to the others. What? Yuan's body is gone? So he's back on Earth? Shirlang said. Most likely, but I couldn't sense his presence anywhere, Chu Liuxiang responded. Surely he didn't leave Earth without a word, right? Wang Ming said. Maybe he was tight on time and had to leave immediately, Wang Bingbing commented. That's probably what happened. While the group speculated on the situation, Meixiu met with the Lord. Yes, he came back. The Lord spoke before Meixiu even got the chance to open her mouth. Where is he now? He's already returned to the 9 heavens. The gateway would only stay open for so long, so he had to leave as soon as possible. I see. It's a pity that we missed him, but at least we'll see him soon in the 7th heaven. By the way, your cultivation. I sacrificed it to open the portal. Meixiu was speechless. You don't have to worry about me. It'll be fine. However, things might get rowdy here soon. What do you mean? Meixiu raised an eyebrow. Join privilege for 50 ADV chapters. Only available in the app. If you want a cheaper option, there's a city. Without hesitation, Yuan handed 100,000 spirit stones to the operator before he could even finish his sentence. I'll prepare the teleportation device right now. A few moments later, Yuan and Leah stepped through the teleportation device, disappearing from the city and emerging several million miles away. Upon exiting the portal, they found themselves a few dozen meters from a colossal steel gate, nestled between 2 towering mountains. Yet these were no ordinary peaks. Their surfaces were not carved from stone, but forged from solid metal. And if one looked closely, the contours and ridges suggested they had been shaped not by nature, but by the force of bare hands. Moreover, the name of the sect, Super Perfect Physique Tempering Sect, was not simply carved, but engraved into the metal through one's fist. Yuan calmly ignored the peculiar name and made his way toward the gate, where a tall, muscular man stood guard. Welcome to the Super Perfect Physique Tempering Sect. What business do you have with us today? The disciple asked. Yuan showed the disciple his celestial overlord symbol and said, I'm here to speak with Kelan. I understand. Give me a moment to contact the sect leader. By the way, can I have your name? Xiaoyang. The disciple retrieved a communication jade slip and relayed a message to a sect elder, who in turn reached out to Kelan. A few minutes later, Yuan could sense a powerful presence flying in their direction with immense speed. Boom. This individual landed right in front of the gates. This disciple greets the sect leader. However, Kelan didn't appear too welcoming. With a frown on his face, he spoke to Yuan using voice transmission. Are you insane? Why would you come straight here after what happened at Dragon Spiral Mountain? Do you have any idea what kind of trouble you might bring to my sect? Yuan smiled and responded, Relax, the Celestial Emperor isn't aware of my identity yet. If he knew my identity, he would have come straight to me. Even if he is aware of my identity, he won't be stupid enough to attack everyone I interact with. I hope. Kelan rubbed his eyes and took a deep breath before speaking. Come with me. I'll bring you to the others. Yuan and Leah followed Kelan into the sect. As they traveled, Yuan said, By the way, did you come up with the sect's name? Yes. It's very unique, isn't it? It's definitely unique in its own way. Yuan smiled. How are the others? Kelan touched his nose in a prideful manner and said, I've personally trained them for the last several years. You'll be surprised by how much they've... Wait. You've already reached the peak of immortal ascension. How is that even possible? Kelan nearly fell out of the sky from shock when he finally noticed Yuan's cultivation. After recovering from his shock, Kelan spoke with an excited smile. I cannot wait to have a serious spar with you later. Yuan chuckled and said, Don't be too upset if you lose. Join privilege for 50 ADV chapters. Only available in the app. Chapter 1995, Sparring with Kelan? Chapter 1995, Sparring with Kelan? By the way, who's that pretty lady? Wait. Let me guess, she's another lover? No, she's a friend. I brought her here from my world. Yuan hastily interrupted when he sensed Leah's cold glare from behind. What? She's from the Forgotten World? Kelan looked at Leah with interest. Why do you bring her to the 9 heavens? It's a bit complicated and it wasn't my decision. Is that so? Sometime later they arrived at the heart of the sect, a domain reserved only for core disciples and sect elders. Kelan continued a little further until they reached a restricted area accessible only to the sect leader, meaning only he could enter. However, when they arrived, Yuan could see several figures already waiting for their arrival. I notified them on our way here, Kelan said as he descended to the ground. Yuan. Manager. Chu Liuxiang and the others greeted them with bright expressions. Hey, everyone, Yuan tried to greet back, but he was interrupted when Chu Liuxiang pounced at him, giving him a tight embrace. I've missed you. I missed you too. Chu Liuxiang didn't hog Yuan all to herself and released him a few seconds later so Meixiu could do the same. Yuan. Meixiu wasted no time and entered his embrace. Sorry, I couldn't see any of you when I returned to Earth, Yuan said to the others a few moments later. I had to rush back as soon as possible. We figured that was the case, Wang Ming said. How long has it been since then? 5 years? Around that, I guess. I haven't kept track. Yuan admitted. I doubt any of us kept track either. We're always so busy. Yuan looked at their cultivation and smiled. I see you've all reached the divine realm. Congratulations. In just a few years, everyone increased their cultivation to divine king, with Li Jinsi even reaching divine ancestor. What cultivation have you reached? I cannot sense it. Zhilang asked. 9th level immortal ascension, he calmly replied. So you're already half a step into becoming an immortal? At this rate, you'll be a true immortal by the next time we see you, Wang Bingbing remarked. Let's chat inside, Kelan said as he opened the doors to his pavilion. Once everyone was seated inside, Yuan recalled his experience over the last several years, from meeting the Holy Dragon clan to visiting the Azure Dragon clan. To think you'd met with not 1, 2, but 3 of the 10 royal dragon clans in such a short time. You know most people go their entire lives without even meeting one of them, right? Kelan remarked. I guess my fate is quite strong when it comes to dragons, he shrugged. What are your plans now? Chu Luoxang asked. Yuan didn't immediately respond. After some pondering, he spoke. There are so many things to do that I don't know where to begin. Since it's been a while, I'm thinking about staying here to spend some time with the rest of you while I figure out my next plan. That sounds like a great plan. Chu Liuxiang immediately said. You don't mind, right? Yuan looked at Kelan. I don't mind, as long as you don't cause any trouble. Yuan smiled and said, the others won't even know I'm here. Wang Xuing suddenly asked, Hey, where's she Meili? I thought she was with you. Oh, we had to split temporarily. She'll come here soon. Some time later, after finishing their conversation, Yuan and the others followed Kelan to a nearby building so they could finally spar. At a glance, the building looked unremarkable, barely larger than a standard warehouse. Yet, the moment they stepped inside, the world around them shifted, and they found themselves in a boundless white space that seemed to stretch into eternity. We can fight to our heart's content on here without needing to worry about damages, Kelan said. Do you need some rest before we start? No, I can spar right now. Then to keep things fair, I'll suppress my cultivation to match yours, Kelan continued. Yuan offered no response, simply nodding in silence. Kelan blinked in mild surprise before chuckling. I was certain you'd say something like, no need to hold back or challenge me to go all out. Yuan smiled faintly. It's easier to just show you. A gleam of excitement flashed across Kelan's face. Without hesitation, he shrugged off his outer robes, revealing the training garb beneath, minimal and fitted, covering only his lower body. Whenever you're ready, he said. Then, Yuan gave a quick stretch of his arms before launching himself toward Kelan, not a trace of aura leaking from his body, relying solely on his physical strength. A clash of physiques first, huh? Just what I was hoping for. Kelan laughed heartily as he charged to meet him. Wah! The moment their bodies collided, Kelan's expression twisted in disbelief. It felt as though he had slammed into an immovable mountain, and before he could even process what had happened, his body was hurled through the air, like a man struck head-on by a truck. Wang Ming and the others could hardly believe what they had just witnessed. After years of training alongside Kelan, they were well aware of how formidable his physique was. In fact, not once had they seen him overpowered in terms of raw strength, until now. After the unexpected blow, Kelan quickly picked himself up. Yet rather than frustration, his face lit up with unrestrained excitement. I couldn't really tell before because your body was mostly made of your soul, he said, eyes gleaming. But that physique, could it be the legendary golden immortal physique? Yuan gave a simple nod. That's right. Ha ha ha. Kelan burst into laughter, his voice echoing through the boundless space. Unbelievable. I'm actually clashing with the legendary golden immortal physique. This is a dream come true. Yuan then said calmly, if you truly want to experience the golden immortal physique, you'll have to try a lot harder. Because his avatar had been composed mostly of his soul, it had barely allowed the golden immortal physique to reveal even a fraction of its true power. But now that Yuan had reclaimed his physical body, the full might of the legendary physique could finally shine without restraint. Join privilege for 50 ADV chapters. Only available in the app. Chapter 1996, Sparring with Kelan 2. Chapter 1996, Sparring with Kelan 2. This is my first time fighting in my true body, so give me everything you've got, Yuan said as he beckoned Kelan. Then, don't mind if I do. Kelan unleashed his cultivation, but he still kept it suppressed to the peak of immortal ascension. Here I come. With a roar of excitement, Kelan charged forward, his fists surging with immense energy. However, Yuan didn't so much as lift a finger to defend. He stood firm like an immovable mountain, taking every one of Kelan's strikes head-on with nothing but his bare body. This is rather relaxing. You might have a future as a masseur, Yuan said calmly, a faint smile on his lips. He stood unbothered, as though Kelan's blows were nothing despite each strike sending ripples through the air and making the very space around them tremble. I refuse to believe I can't break through your defenses. Kelan roared, his aura flaring violently as it shifted. Without hesitation he began unleashing powerful martial techniques. He's already using his 99 Divine Fists technique. Lang exclaimed, a shiver running down his spine as memories flooded back, vivid flashes of being beaten to a pulp by that very technique. The technique comprised a total of 99 strikes, each one building in power and ferocity, much like Yuan's own 9 supreme swords. 55th Divine Fist. Kelan bellowed as his fist crashed forward, the air trembling from the force. Yet even after unleashing more than half of the technique, he felt no closer to breaching Yuan's defenses. It was like striking a mountain of metal with a brittle wooden branch. 99th Divine Fist. Even after the final strike landed, Yuan wasn't pushed back even slightly. With a faintly provocative smile, Yuan turned slightly and pointed to his back. Why don't you give the back some attention too? He said, as if inviting a massage rather than an attack. Kelan's eyebrow twitched, a flicker of irritation crossing his face as his pride took a hit. With a slightly cold edge to his voice, he muttered, "You asked for this?" Suddenly, his suppressed cultivation surged, breaking through to the bronze immortal level. Now wreathed in swirling immortal chi, Kelan launched a renewed assault on Yuan. 22nd Divine Fist. 75th Divine Fist. After going through another 99 strikes, Kelan distanced himself from Yuan before staring at him with wide eyes that flickered with disbelief. It's like he doesn't even feel my attacks. How is that possible? Knowing full well that Yuan possessed powerful regenerative abilities, Kelan didn't hold back and poured every ounce of immortal chi he could muster as a bronze immortal into his attacks. Yet, despite his full strength, the outcome was the same as before, utterly ineffective. Moreover, Yuan was still relying solely on his bare body to endure the onslaught. This meant no techniques and no defenses, just sheer physique. At this point, it was no exaggeration to say that he could withstand a full-powered assault from a bronze immortal in his sleep, and quite possibly sleep through it. That wasn't bad, but it would have been better if you'd used a little more strength. How about increasing your cultivation to true immortal? Yuan suddenly said. True immortal? You know this is just a spar, right? Kelan said. And you know you won't even be able to give me a warm-up with this level of sparring, right? Yuan responded. What happened to wanting to experience the golden immortal physique? You're barely seeing the tip of its prowess right now. After a moment of silence, Kelan took a deep breath and spoke in a serious tone, Don't blame me for whatever happens next. Kelan increased his cultivation to silver immortal, then golden immortal, finally stopping at true immortal. Yuan smiled and said, That's more like it. Here I come. After giving Yuan a brief moment to ready himself, Kelan sprang into motion, soaring toward him with fists infused with immortal chi and just a trace of celestial chi. Despite this, Yuan remained still. Boom. A split second later, Yuan's body was sent hurtling into the distance from the force of the blow. However, he swiftly regained control mid-air and landed gracefully on his feet, completely unharmed. The strike had possessed just enough power to send him flying, but it was still far from enough to break his defenses. Seriously? Kelan stared at Yuan, utterly dumbfounded. He had always assumed the legends surrounding the golden immortal physique were exaggerated. But after facing it firsthand, Kelan could say without the slightest doubt. If anything, the legends underplayed its true prowess. So, what do you think? Xuan asked as he calmly walked toward Kelan. Satisfied yet? Kelan offered a nervous smile, sweat beading at his brow. I thought it'd be fun, but honestly it was more terrifying than I expected. Xuan let out a light chuckle. Then what if I told you that my body still isn't fully merged with my soul? What? Kelan blurted out, his eyes widening in disbelief. Xuan nodded calmly. It's been nearly a year since I reclaimed my true body. I thought that would be enough to fully adapt, but so far I've only managed about 50%. You're telling me that you've only shown me about 50% of your true prowess? Kelan exclaimed. Him? No, I haven't even begun to show you anything yet. I'm strictly talking about my physique. If we're talking about my prowess. Xuan abruptly stopped speaking and in the next moment, unleashed his cultivation and immortal chi in a sudden surge, its sheer force nearly knocking Kelan off his feet. Heavens! What is that amount of immortal chi? I have met many true immortals, but none of them can come close to having that much immortal chi. Kelan exclaimed. While my cultivation has fully merged and my physique is about halfway there, my bloodline and the rest of my talents have only just begun to merge. Honestly, I have no clue how powerful I will become once my true body and soul fully merge. Xuan calmly shrugged, leaving Kelan and the others speechless. Join privilege for 50 ADV chapters. Only available in the app. In the end, Kelan lay sprawled on the ground, his chest rising and falling with exhaustion as he stared blankly at the endless white, his expression dazed, caught between disbelief and awe. Xuan sat on the ground, his entire body soaked in sweat. However, his breathing was calm and his body was still surging with strength. While Kelan looked as if he had sprinted through a marathon, Xuan, by contrast, appeared as though he had merely taken a leisurely jog around the park. Does the golden immortal physique give you unlimited stamina as well? Kelan suddenly asked. No, that's something else. Something else? Just how many secrets are contained within that small body of yours? Who knows? Xuan replied with a casual shrug. It might have come off as evasive, but in truth he genuinely didn't have the answer. Are you two finally done? Wang Ming called out as he and the others approached. None of them had left during the month-long battle. They had remained there from start to finish, eyes fixed on every clash and exchange. And just from observing, each of them had gained insight, advancing their understanding and even strengthening their own cultivation in the process. Sorry, I didn't intend on taking up so much of your time, Kelan said to Xuan. He shook his head and said, No, it's fine. I needed time to adjust to my new condition too. You'll be staying at the Sect, right? They'll prepare a place for you. No need. I can just live with Meixiu or Lulu. He turned to them and continued, Are you okay with that? Of course. In fact, I was going to make that suggestion. Chu Liuxiang said. Meixiu nodded in agreement. Okay. Just as Kelan stood up and prepared to leave, Xuan suddenly stopped him. Wait a minute. What is it? Don't reject this. Xuan tapped his forehead, drawing forth a glowing orb of light. With a casual flick of his finger, almost as if launching a flicked booger, he sent the orb sailing through the air, striking Kelan squarely between the brows. Kelan trusted Xuan and didn't resist the surge of information flooding into his mind. Titus is? He cried out, his voice trembling with shock as if he'd just seen a ghost. His expression twisted with disbelief, eyes wide and filled with utter astonishment. Xuan smiled and said, Don't worry, it's real. Consider it a gift for taking care of my friends for the last few years. After taking a moment to process the information Xuan had shared with him, Kelan suddenly dropped to his knees and kowtowed without hesitation. Please, he said with deep reverence, allow me to call you father. What the heck? Shi Lang and the others stared with wide eyes, wondering what Xuan had given Kelan for him to act like this. Rejected. Xuan calmly refused. Then how about young master? No. I don't want to hear that from you. Just continue treating me normally. As you command. Kelan shouted before jumping to his feet. He turned to look at Meixiu and the others and said, He'll be entering seclusion for a bit. You can train yourselves in the meantime or take a break. You all deserve it. Then, like an overjoyed child with a new toy, he skipped away, grinning from ear to ear. How's your mother Mei Feng doing nowadays? Yuan eventually asked. She's spending more time in the Nine Heavens since there's not much for her to do on Earth nowadays. She even started a business as a merchant. A merchant? Yuan raised an eyebrow at this unexpected news. Yes, Meixiu said. She started in the lower heavens, gradually building her influence as she ascended through each realm. Now she's in the fourth heaven, and from what I've heard she's become quite renowned. I see. Hopefully she's not mad at me for not being around lately. Of course not. She misses you a lot and would always ask me about you whenever we encounter each other. Oh, we visit the myriad of techniques once every 2 months to catch up with each other. Yuro and the others are also there. Yuro, how is she? Yuan asked, an air of melancholy surrounding him. She probably misses you the most out of all of us. And she... Meixiu suddenly paused, almost as if contemplating whether to continue. Nothing's happened to her, right? Yuan sat up on the bed with a worried frown on his face. Meixiu let out a quiet sigh before continuing. Honestly, I haven't seen a genuine smile from her in a long time. Whenever she does smile, it always feels forced. At first, we thought someone might be causing her trouble. But according to her close friends Xia Jingyi and Bai Lianhua, there's no such person. The real reason she's been acting that way is because she misses you. Upon hearing those words, Yuan suddenly realized just how much he had been neglecting Yuro, something that had quietly begun the moment he first stepped into Cultivation Online and had only deepened with time. Yuan let out a heavy sigh as he covered his face with his arm. To have caused Yuro so much pain. I've failed her as a brother. But this is mostly because of the Celestial Emperors? No, Yuan interrupted firmly. I can't blame the Celestial Emperor. While he may be the reason I haven't been able to return to Earth these past few years. I started neglecting Yuro long before that. This is on me entirely. Meixiu became silent, and an awkward silence filled the room. When's the next meeting? Yuan then asked. Our last meeting was a month and 2 weeks ago, so we'll be meeting again in 2 weeks. All right. In the meantime, I need to think of a way to make it up to her. Early on the next day, Yuan washed up before leaving Meixiu's living quarters to head to Chu Luxiang's place, which was only a few steps away. When he arrived at her doorstep, Yuan gave a gentle knock. Almost instantly the door swung open. Welcome, darling. Chu Luxiang greeted him with a playful smile, dressed in a strikingly provocative outfit that left little to the imagination. Before Yuan could even utter a word, Chu Luxiang seized his arm and pulled him inside, pressing her lips to his in a deep, eager kiss the moment the door closed behind them. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.